I feel like I'm right on it.
Nah, it's good though. Trust me, it works. It works out.
Okay.
So Quincy Hewitt and Jayne Caldwell on the podcast today. We're making it happen. So I've got a couple gals in the studio for once, breaking up the monotony of random dudes that we have on this podcast. So welcome, girls.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So you guys have a pretty crazy story. You both played in the LFL. LFL, which is the Lingerie Football League in America. And now you guys won a national championship together, and then now have sort of jumped sides and are on like the athlete management side of things. So there's definitely some cool stuff to talk about, I feel like, on the podcast. You guys have a very unique story. And it actually stemmed from the podcast with Jesse, because I thought Jesse was the only one to win a national football championship in Australia, but it turns out there's a couple others.
Yeah, there are.
So how did that sort of journey begin for you guys to even get into that? Like, because it blew my mind with Jesse, because it's like it's hard enough for a dude to get into it from here, and then here's a couple of gals that are going over there and killing it. So where does that sort of start for girls trying to get into that league?
Well, for me, I played sport my entire life. You know, I went to Brisbane State High, and that they're known for a sporting school. And I was playing touch football, volleyball, and all different kinds of sports at the time, but I was getting like bored of it. You know, it was something I've always done. And then my friend approached me about a tryout with American football. And then I went along to it. It was just for a local league. And, you know, I made the team, and it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. And then we heard about a tryout for the LFL, which is the Legends Football, or the Lingerie Football League, but they rebranded it. It's called the Legends.
They actually rebranded it when they brought it out to Australia because the backlash was so like much.
I feel like at the start, like when you watch, I've watched some of your stuff through Instagram and that, I feel like at the start it was way more like objectifying in a way, like it was super gimmicky.
They had like the chokers and, you know.
Yeah, well,
it was a bit weird at the start, right?
It was the halftime show at the Super Bowl, and they had
Really?
It was models that were playing, so they weren't actually athletes, and they wore like suspenders, and
it was called the Lingerie Bowl.
Yeah. So it had a lot of lace and frills, and they had the garters, and so it was very sexualized. And then as the league progressed, the girls got more athletic, and then they changed the uniforms. It's more sporty and streamlined. And then when they came out to Australia, they rebranded. The first season that we played,
2013, the Legends.
It became the Legends Football League.
Because I actually, when I was looking through your Instagram when we connected, I actually was wondering if it even was the Lingerie Football League anymore, because it just looks more like activewear now.
Yeah.
So that's interesting then that they did, because at the start it was like over the top, like full on, like grid girls throwing a football around kind of deal.
Yeah. And we weren't taken seriously as athletes at the time, you know, sure. And I'm glad that they rebranded, but it's so hard to get away from it because everyone knows it as the Lingerie Football League.
Yeah.
They actually even tried in our last season, or actually 2017, they tried to go to pants just to see how it would work. But
for 2 games, wasn't it?
Dude, Lululemon would be all over that shit. Like, can you imagine but for real, could you imagine the money that you could get if it was like played in more like activewear style clothing? Because that's be some huge sponsors. Like, that's got to be one of the biggest industries right now, clothing wise.
What the league told us was when we did go to pants that we lost, what was it, 70% viewership or something?
Really?
So it was something ridiculous.
No shit.
Yeah, like the fan base is very much built on men who watch it. Like, the football's good, but they obviously like that element of it. So, and I think with any company, if you're rebranding, you have to commit to it longer than 2 games.
2 games.
You know what I mean? Because that's a huge transition, but the potential for the sport to be on mainstream TV and to progress, and it would have been so cool. They just had to keep pushing through.
Yeah, you got to take a step back to jump forward, you know what I mean? And they just weren't willing to push through
that little hard bit where, you know, you're changing fans over and you're getting different kinds of fans.
Is that my phone? Oh, dude. That is the biggest rookie error. I thought it was you guys.
You're like, excuse me, can you turn your phone
off?
Come on, girls.
Who's doing that? That's me. At least I put it, because I always put it face down, so I'm like, I can't even be distracted when it's on silent, but there you go.
Yeah, I always put mine on Do Not Disturb.
I've only just started that, actually. I didn't really know, like, as much tech is in this room. I'm not that techie of a person, but I've just started the Do Not Disturb. It's like basically now when I walk in the door, from like finishing work, do not disturb. I'm done with it.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, but it's because you can still like you still get your messages and stuff. But
Yeah, but you just
not
don't get
seeing the notifications.
Yeah, and it doesn't. Your phone doesn't light up or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is the move. But yeah, so the like rebranding sort of strategy, like they just only stuck with it for a couple games, huh? That's crazy because right now, like post Ronda Rousey, sport is different for women.
Yeah.
I think it's taken so much more seriously than it was, and I think that because it was in such like a gnarly sport, it was like fighting. Like this chick is going to fight, and I think that almost just carried with it every other sport, because it's like almost that's kind of like the gnarliest thing a chick can do is punch another chick in the face on TV, right?
Yeah.
So I really think that all sports, in terms of like women's sports, everything got elevated with Ronda Rousey. So it seems like, I mean, I'm not sure what year it was that they did that with the going to the pants, but it's like it would have been around that sort of era of, you know,
It was
women in MMA.
2017, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that's kind of like right in that, like that's a wave of, you know, women in sport. It's like changing to be a more equal sort of system, and like you can see it now with surfing.
Yeah.
Like surfing, you had equal pay at the freshwater classic, which is the wave pool event.
That's really cool.
Yeah, because the women were surfing like literally the exact same wave.
Yeah.
So, because like, I mean, you guys would probably be great people to obviously ask, but like, where do you sit with that whole like kind of equality debate in sport when it comes to men and women, especially managing athletes? Like you guys are actually going to bat for men and for women, so like you guys would have to understand both sides of like the economic coin, right?
Yeah, no, definitely.
I mean, we weren't paid to play, so
Really?
our league
At all?
At all.
No
Yeah.
way.
Everyone thinks the Lingerie Football League, the Legends Football League, all the athletes get paid, but they don't.
No way.
Yeah.
And I believe
That's
they
crazy.
did in the very beginning. Like, I think that originally there
Yeah,
was.
the first couple
I think he was
seasons.
getting paid a lot of money. It was on TV and things like that. And then it just completely changed. So we never actually experienced getting paid.
Really?
You had the opportunity because you were playing on a national stage. I mean, like,
Yeah, like a
international
huge platform.
You could, like, monetize other things, like, you know, with other sponsorships and deals and things like that, which we did. Like, we were really active and, like, if we're going to be here, we love playing, we might as well use this platform to, like, make it work for us. But we weren't actually paid.
Yeah,
so.
and it was actually really hard to source out endorsements and sponsorship because they didn't want to get behind the lingerie aspect, and you know they didn't want their brand associated with that. So it was really hard for us to find a company that wanted to get behind us and support what we do, because what we did was the most elite level of football in America
For females.
For females, yeah, and it was really hard to make it work. And
people see the social media stuff, and they did
Yeah.
pay for all of our travel, all your flights and accommodation when you're in season are paid for.
So I'd say it's like semi-pro, you know, like we didn't have any expenses playing, and we didn't have to pay to play, but we didn't get paid.
Yeah, right. So you're like the Flint Tropics.
And I mean, down the track, I think it's heading in that direction. Like, I think,
Yeah,
especially in
has to for
Australia,
sure,
like,
yeah.
you know,
With the
Australia is ahead of
AFLW
it.
and the NRL and the women's cricket
Man, the
getting
women.
paid.
Did you guys
cricket.
watch the Women's State of Origin this year?
No.
Oh, it was an epic game. Like I watched the whole 80 minutes, and it's like, I don't know, you sort of feel like a dick even saying that, like, oh, I watched the whole thing, like it was actually good. You know, like things need to improve in that sort of sense of like even how people talk about women's sport. But like it's changing,
Yeah.
and like, you know, even me saying that, like that's not the right way to say like, oh, I watched it all, but that's the reality.
Yeah.
And it's like you could either, at least I'm on the right side of that particular statement, you know what I mean? And it's like everything will change, and it will get better, and it is on the way to getting better.
Yeah, and you know what, in saying that, a lot of people say that, you know, the women's sport, it's not the same caliber as the men, but we don't get the same support or equipment or trainers or, you know, like that kind of stuff to be able to excel to a higher level. Yeah, you know, we had to source out our own training, our own doctors, physios, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and we had to pay for it all ourselves. Whereas the men, they get that as a part of, you know, their contract and them being with a professional sports team. We didn't get any of that, and we had to do it all by, you know, all the girls on our team, they had full-time jobs.
So everything is shortcutted. So I think if girls have that platform where you can actually get to that level where you're performing at your peak.
And you're spending, your full time doing this and not having to work another job or
hustling on the outside just to like keep your head above water.
But yet women still do that and they still perform at the level that they are at.
Yeah.
So,
which I think is cool because most women in sport do it because they love it.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of guys, they're chasing the dollar, which is also cool. Like I get that 100%, but you speak to most female athletes and they grind it out year after year after year because
working
they actually
twice
love it.
as hard for little reward.
But you go back to like the 70s in the NRL and dudes were brickies smoking ciggies at halftime. It's just that's the way I feel like everything starts. But because it's got to go like you've got to go back to the very start of like, so before any sport or whatever, like before we even started playing like organised sport in Australia or America or whatever, what were the interests? So it's like men have these lot of interests, women have these lots of interests, and then it's like you sort of go in these directions, and then it's like obviously a progression's going to happen once people start to get together and play sports. So it's like I do understand that why men are ahead of the curve, and I've got like a problem when people just think it's like straight discrimination, and there probably is an element of that in everything. But there's also, I feel like that's just everywhere, no matter whether it's male or female. But I think that now that like it's sort of becoming more obvious that it's like, oh, women are pretty much just like in the more contact sort of sports and the more male dominated sports. It's like, no, they're just like 20 years behind based on just guys having a head start. And it's like nowadays the culture's changing in my views to where it's like when I have a daughter, she's going to be in martial arts. Like I do jiu-jitsu. When that girl's 4 years old, she will be on a jiu-jitsu mat learning how to choke dudes out. And it's like her life will be, like her perception of what a girl can be will be different.
Completely different.
But when my sister grew up, she was 25 or something, 20. I should know how old my sister is. But she...
Don't say her age anyway.
No, I'll out her. She did ballet and we played football.
Yeah.
And that's only what, 20 years ago so like...
girls did girls things and boys did boys
things.
things.
And that was for us growing up too. I did ballet, I did jazz, I did all of that stuff. Yeah, gymnastics. And then my brother played rugby and basketball, all that kind of stuff. So it's not that long ago that...
Yeah. Like even in our generation, it's like our age group, our generation, like we're the first ones that are like living sort of through that, like this sort of change of the guard. But like, I think what you guys were talking about before, it's such a chicken and the egg thing. It's like someone has to step up. It's like, do the girls have to grind it out for another 30 years before they get the support? Or is someone going to like look into the future and say, well, eventually it's going to be big enough to support girls having full-time trainers, everyone's getting paid, endorsement deal, like it will happen. And like the market is so crazy with girls in terms of like girls buy shit. If you look at any advertising, any when you go in like a marketing meeting or whatever, it's like, who are the consumers? It's like 80% women. Yeah. So like, doesn't it
online shopping?
Yeah,
love it
for sure. But doesn't it make sense that then, like, could you imagine like the lingerie football league or the Legends football league or whatever, but it's like sponsored by Zara?
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean? Like there's so much crazy opportunity, or like Lululemon instead of Nike. There's or even Nike's women's division is insane.
Yeah.
So I think that it's just this sort of catch up thing. But to what you guys were saying, it's like you guys can play at such a high level and there's no like corporate support. It's like someone has to, it's either a chicken or the egg. It's like, do we just let the girls grind it out for 30 years until it just catches up? Or does somebody see the value in it and then go, no, let's just pull the trigger and sort of make it happen?
Well, we kind of knew that when we signed up for it, that our generation, our career playing, we weren't going to get paid, but we were hoping that we would pave the way for the next generation of female athletes coming through. And
to be vocal about like what we go through and then like what we want and like what we think that we deserve, and kind of be that bridge so that one day our children would have that opportunity. So like we didn't have the expectation of getting paid, but I feel like now, especially in Australia, piggybacking off the men's leagues, I think is super cool. Like how they have like the Sharks have their team, all of that. I think that's a cool way for people who are already fans of that club to then get behind their female version. And then, you know, the more crowds, the more people, the more hype, the more media, and like all of those male athletes respecting and like intertwining with those female
and supporting them and going to their games.
Then they're going to get those numbers. And then once the numbers, it's a numbers game as well. Like people want to make money, and I get that. Like you're not just like, let's give the girls a go and like we'll just fund them. It's like,
but there's opportunity there.
No, definitely.
Crazy opportunity.
And then once you have that, then it starts to snowball, and I think the quality of the product gets better, more people come, and then it just goes from there.
Similar with the NBA and the WNBA. You know what I mean? They have the support of the NBA. Now more of the NBA guys are going to the WNBA games and creating more hype and momentum around that. I feel like they could do that with the NFL and like a WNFL or, you know, something like that. But it's such a good model, piggybacking off of the guys' teams to get the women's going.
Yeah.
Well, the women's AFL does that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I met Maddie, what's her last name? Maddie. She plays for Collingwood. And, the netball, sorry.
Okay, yeah.
She's at Collingwood had like a netball team, and it was like all run through the AFL team. So they used all their facilities, all their trainers, everything like that. And it's just like you'd have to think too, as like if you're a hardcore footy fan as a dude, like having your wife into it, you know, like that's sort of like half the battle sometimes.
Yeah, it
like,
makes sense.
Let's go to the game, and then the daughters can look at the female athletes, and the young son can look up to the male athletes, or even crossing over, you know, to where it's like some like young boy's favorite player might be, you know, the captain of the female Sharks team or whatever, you know.
Yeah, and we have, after our games in America, there's about an hour where we have to sign autographs and meet fans, and it's quite interactive. And we have young girls coming through, and you know, one of them told us, "Oh, it's so good that we get to go watch females once, because I'm always going with my brothers to NFL games, whereas now they have to come with me to these LFL games where I can watch and support, you know, these women who I look up to." So it is, you know, just getting them involved and having something for both, you know, the kids and the family, and no,
it's definitely, and like it just will happen.
Like it's inevitable.
Know, it's just a time thing, right?
And I think if you can capitalize on it now, you're going to be at the forefront of like how it moves.
For sure.
Like for big brands that are looking, like I think it's so smart. Like maybe it's going to cost you a little bit upfront, but then you have that loyalty with them, and you have that like connection, and then when it explodes, you're kind of there with them, and you're part of the journey, rather than waiting till the end and then trying to jump on. Yeah,
well, first to market in anything is always sort of the ones that, I mean, I think even that's part of the reason why this podcast has done well, is like it's just we were one of the first people to really do like a serious Australian podcast, and then like you can see other ones that are the same that started a couple of years ago, and it's like everyone's doing well, and it's like if you're first to market in anything, you know, so it makes sense to sort of to jump in at that level. And like you can market, it's such a crazy time for, and you guys would know as now in the management role, but like just marketing in general, like there's so many ways that you can market something. There's so many ways to be involved with, you know, selling products. Like it's never been better with Instagram, with Facebook.
And with internet, and because the internet really levels the playing field. You know, there's no equality on the internet. It's not like a female can make less than a male on the internet. It's just all level, and it's just the reach that we have now is just ridiculous.
Well, I'd argue that women can make extreme amounts more than men on Instagram. Like I'd say that platform specifically is like a hugely female dominated platform in terms of an individual making money off that platform.
Yeah, I agree. I think girls go after it as well. Like they set it in their mind. Whereas guys, I think a lot of them accidentally get into some situations, but they're not as aggressive as seeking out deals and trying to monetize
putting themselves
it.
out there as much.
Whereas girls are like, okay, I don't know if it's because we need it more than they do. I don't know, but
that's a weird one, like the economics of the whole Instagram thing. Because I have thought about that a bit, and it's like even with because I enjoy marketing, and I enjoy that type of it's just an analytics game, really. It's like what works, why is this and this happening, you know. But like you follow like a chick that has you see a chick that has 20,000 followers. She's following all chicks with check marks. Like if you go in to see who she's following, like it's definitely, that's a weird little environment, ecosystem where it's like girls are really following girls, and guys are following girls. Like but it is a weird platform like that, right? And then I think that is what lets you make so much money, because like a girl to advertise, like guys are really only limited to advertising other male sort of products, I think. Like a guy's doesn't have the opportunity to, you know, like sell a lip gloss or whatever. But I feel like women, because they've got an audience of like men that are looking at them for whatever reasons, and then women also look at other women. So it's like, it's a pretty interesting platform that, you know, women can definitely make like a lot of money.
A lot of money.
And this is something that we learned, not the hard way, but when we were playing in the league, we used our platform to try and make money online, and our following was predominantly males, like 85% male.
Mine was 92% male.
Really?
8% female.
So at the time we were just, and you know, we were playing football in our underwear, so like we were posting quite, it wasn't actually anything bad. It was just like bikini photos and things like that. And that's what our following really liked, and we grew really quickly with that. And then now obviously stepping away from the sport, and we are building a company that helps athletes transition, and we're rebranding ourselves and like being more authentic to who we are and just posting stuff that we actually like, rather than like, is this going to get
likes
traction? We notice it's gone like way down, because obviously our followers, they only followed us for that reason.
And the fact that we played football in our underwear. So when we stepped away from that, we actually lost a huge amount of following, and you know, our photos don't get as much engagement, because we're not posting the stuff that we used to post. It's more professional now, and it's more classy, and it's more us. And our male followers don't like it.
It's but
we need some females if you're listening.
Well, they're not. Not on this podcast.
No, actually, we just need athletes. We don't need the females.
What was the what's going on with this thing? What was it like to be in that world of, you know, that okay, I'm going to post this picture in my underwear, and then guys, 85% or 95%, it's for these guys and they're going to like it, but I'm making money off it. Like, what was it like to sort of be in that? Like, because I mean, my job is to make content and post content, but I don't give a fuck what I look like. I don't care what I'm wearing half the time, as you can tell. But like, you know what I mean? It's not like, that's not what my focus is. I don't have that pressure to think about. And I always look at girls that are posting stuff in bikinis or lingerie stuff, or like, you know, even girls that push it super far to where their posts are getting taken down for like nipples and shit like that. So it's like, I've always wondered what it's like to sort of live in that world where it's like you're getting rewarded for something that is not, like you guys said, like you guys leave the sport and you're like, well, I'm not really going to be posting shit in my undies all the time, because like that's not what I do. So it's like, I don't know, was it weird living in that headspace? Or
I think that like anyone who does in that realm, like good on them. Like anyone can do whatever.
I totally there's no like prejudice against it.
And I just think, you know, if you rock it, do what you want. If you're popping, like, I have all respect for people and whatever they choose to do. It is just something that you can't keep up if it's inauthentic. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think your social media should be an expression of who you are, and then it's easy. Whereas I think if you're doing it, like, sometimes it's like an icky feeling.
And you see so many accounts that are so similar to other accounts, and they're not real, they're not raw, they're not different. And I feel like once we moved away from the sport, I was like, I don't want to be like just any other LFL player posting all this stuff on my Instagram. Like, I want to be me and be, you know, as real and authentic as possible. And
it feels better if you actually connect with people. Like, they like your content because they're like, you made me feel a certain way, or I resonate with that, or like, you know, I really want to know what you're doing, or I want to just be around you because you seem like a cool person, rather than like, nice tits, nice eyes.
Well, and I honestly didn't care when I lost the amount of following that I did, because I was like, well, at least now I can be more myself, rather than, whereas before I had to be the LFL player and like the, you know, like the sexy.
It was just one identity.
And that wasn't who I was as a person. And a lot of athletes will tell you this, that they're more than just an athlete. They have other parts of themselves that they want to pursue. And I see it all the time where athletes post about, rapping or writing or, other parts of themselves. And the fans don't really, they're like, you should get back in the gym and, prepare for the game. It's like, well, they're more than just an athlete, and I feel like we found that out when we were, the same thing happened to us with our social media and the things that we were doing. And all I get are messages all the time, like, when are you coming back to play? I was like, well.
Yeah, and I also think that some people with that kind of content, they're not even really connected, because I still get people that say you had such a great season. I'm like, I didn't even play. Yeah. Like, do you even know who I am? Yeah. So, like, because they're just skimming, they're just not really invested in you. Whereas I think if you're branding yourself, I mean, that would be the advice that I have for me a few years ago. Is like, if you're going to try and brand yourself online, I think start off as you wish to, like, and I mean, it can always change and evolve as you do. So you can change your mind at any point, but I think just like be yourself. Otherwise it's too hard.
That whole long game thing with content is so important that I think, like, when you get into the type of position where, like, because as much as people want to talk shit on social media, like, I've said it a bunch of times, like, I don't have negative effects of social media at all. Like, I like looking at, I barely look at stuff, like, in terms of scrolling. People I follow, I want to follow. I have no, like, I don't follow anyone because I think they're a dick. Like, there's definitely people that do that. Like, they follow people that they don't like so that they can judge those people or talk shit about them or see what they're up to. Like, those kind of things. Like, I don't have any of that. And I also see it as, like, a great way to promote the things that I'm doing, and I try and do positive stuff only through the podcast. So it's like, I see all of the positives with it, but it's a slow grind. Like, we have hundreds of thousands of people that listen to this podcast on iTunes, but only 10,000 people on Instagram. And you're like, fuck, like, it can get frustrating. You're like, why aren't all those people in here? But it's like, if you are disingenuous and not true to yourself from the start because you want to get clicks, like, I see so many people, it's like they're like, I'm just going to start posting memes because it's like that gets traction. Like, if you can be on with a funny meme, but it's like, do you really want to be like that dude?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's
the meme guy.
Yeah. But it's super hard at the start, when you do see the opportunity and you do see, like, okay, there's money to be made through this platform. It's hard to then say no at the start to taking that easy money or trying to just grow your following super quick or advertising the shit out of what you're doing and, with sponsored posts and stuff. Like, it's really hard for people. And then you get into a trap where like you sort of pigeonhole yourself and you're like, well, I can't post this style of content. I can't post this style of content.
This is a conversation we have with athletes all the time. So our business is helping athletes transition into life after sport. So it's not so much managing them. They have managers and agents, and obviously when they're retired, they're just off on their own. So we went through that hard transition and we just help give them options outside of that. And one of the things is talking to them about what they want long term and like making a plan for the long term rather than like, let's do a short-term fix. And like with branding especially, like we tell them that they are their brand. Like they were a football player, but they are also like a father and a mentor, and there's so many facets to them. And instead of trying to do something and have that quick fix, like let's look at what you actually want to achieve long term and work towards that instead. And it's so much more powerful.
Yeah, and so many athletes leave the league, and 1 to 4 years after they leave, they were doing something that they didn't really want to do, and then 4 years later they're like, I don't actually want to do this, I want to get into something else. And it's so common with athletes because they just get steered down a direction that they think they should go rather than what they want to do.
It's so true. And I think like what you were saying before about when people like, oh, they're going to rap or they're going to do whatever, there's definitely a part of people that I think there's like a semi-resentment of like, we can appreciate someone being really good at one thing.
but you can't be two. You can't be an NBA player and a rapper.
Yeah, but I think that's real. Like I really do think that people have like, there's a certain problem that people have, especially I think in Australia is probably a little bit worse for that, is that sort of tall poppy syndrome. And I think it's because Australians are really like humble people in terms of like where we all come from. Like there's very few people that have like this upper class background, and it's like if you make it to the NRL, like you're probably from a really hard working family. Like Corey Parker, for example, is a good friend of mine, and like he was Logan junior, and it's like Logan's not an amazing, you know, sort of socio-economic place to grow up, and it's like he played for those juniors, and then he played for the Brisbane Broncos. He never left. He never, you know, he's just that hard-working sort of guy. And I think that that's the story with like most Australians in sport and just most Australians in general. So it's like, oh, you want to tell me that you're going to be good at everything? It's like, fuck, bro. You know? So I think that's maybe where a little bit of that stuff comes from.
And it is crazy because I think that people think because you play professional sport and you have all these opportunities that you don't have the same feelings as other people, that you don't have the same desires, or, you know, oh, you should be grateful because you got to do that. But when you're not an athlete, your athlete career finishes
very young.
Very young.
Around your 30s, Yeah,
if you're lucky. Otherwise, the average is 2 to 3 years. So what, you expect them to just go off and that's it for them, and like they don't understand that it is really hard because athletes spend their formative years of their life playing sport and working towards a sporting goal, so they don't explore other parts of themselves, and then they stop being an athlete, and then they're like, who the hell am I? Like, who am I outside of this? And it does get to be bigger and better if you choose. And like, I think that people thinking that once you're an athlete that's the peak of your life, like no, like it is a great part, but like it gets to be bigger and better if you want it to be.
Well, I love those like the 30 for 30s. Like I'm obsessed with watching like all the old play, like all the old NFL dudes, and like you hear some of them like literally say winning the Super Bowl was the greatest moment of my life. Like standing in that stadium, I threw that winning touchdown in the fourth quarter with 35 seconds to go. Life, and like he said, like I stood there and it was, I can't remember who it was that said it, but it was like I stood there and I knew that was the highlight of my life, and my life would never be better than this moment. And it's like, that's kind of sad.
Yeah,
it's really sad.
But that's real.
That's real because you literally work towards that moment. That's all you think about.
Yeah.
All you think about every day is like, what am I doing today to get better so that I can win that championship? Like,
we were in the same boat. We were working towards the exact same thing.
Yeah, and we had that exact same moment.
The confetti was coming down.
Like,
and
we had the entire like, yay, like we finally did it. Like we did it in America where people said that, you know, Australians can't
win a championship over there or do well over there.
Especially being a quarterback for yourself, like, and to like the positions you guys played, it's like that's so critical. And like you said, most Australians are going over to be like a punter or something like that, you know.
So it was something that we worked towards, and it wasn't an easy journey. We loved it, but after,
it's definitely not the best moment of, I mean, it's an amazing moment, but I know I'm going to have so many more amazing. I'm only 26, like I'm like
there's definitely, so that was like a really big high. We like really felt it and experienced it, and it was like a cool thing. But then we'll like looked at each other and we're like, it's got to get better. And you know what, we went through the same thing that a lot of athletes go through, where you start to feel very,
I had a quarter life crisis. I was like, what am I doing with my life? You know, I'm 20.
But I think that everyone at 25 or whatever sort of goes through that anyway, right? It's like you're just experiencing it on like a kind of a weirder stage than most.
Yeah. And just because, you know, I went over to the States when I was 20 and I played sport for those 5 years, and then I was kind of done with it. I came back to Australia, and all my friends, you know, they'd moved on and they're having kids and they bought a house and they're established in their jobs, and I'm kind of like, hey guys, I'm back. Like,
stay at mums.
What am I doing with my life? I don't know.
Yeah, and athletes all go through it. It's kind of depressing, and you're kind of floating along, and everyone's going, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do next?
And the bar's set so high. Because you're an overachiever, essentially.
Yeah, and then you come back and everyone thinks you've got it all sorted out. And, you know, being an athlete, you kind of get put on a pedestal, and people don't humanize you in a way that you can't, you know, if you say anything bad, or you're like, you know, I'm a little bit lost, or I'm a little bit depressed, they think like, you're ungrateful, or, you know, of the process and the journey that you went through. But, you know, it was such a huge part of your life for so long, and now that's gone, and it's kind of like a piece of you is gone, you know, and
it was no direction after that. It's like, where do you point the needle next?
And so many people their identity becomes that, and a lot of people, that because that's all I did in America. I just worked with athletes, and I would see these guys and it's like, it's so hard. Like, I understand it because you're around these dudes and you're walking through the pits and you're walking through shopping centers and you're at dinner and these people are coming up and everyone wants a photo and everyone wants to be around you, and it's just like this constant like positive affirmations of how amazing you are, and it's all because of throwing a football or riding a dirt bike or surfing. It's like whatever it is that's your thing, it's like it's so hard to avoid your identity and like this separation between like that's one part of who I am, not all of who I am. Like I'm not Quincy the football player, you know, I'm not Jayne the quarterback. It's like I'm Jayne, but I'm a quarterback. And it's like a lot of people, I think that, and the problem, I think what would help is not having the yes men around you all the time. And when you're a male athlete at the top level, you've got is just people just cupping your nuts 24/7.
Groupies were actually talking about this the other day.
But like I get that from the groupie side because life's fucking awesome on the other side of the thing. Like, you know, even I went to a concert the other day and I was like a guest of an artist. And I didn't have to fucking stand in the mosh pit. Like they sent a car to get me. So it's like, I get it. I get why it's awesome to be the dude that knows that dude. And then you can make a lifestyle out of that. And so many people do. But then the athlete is like the nucleus of like this weird circle of people that's just this constant
kind of
yes
feed
fest.
off them.
They feed off of it, but then when that athlete's no longer relevant, when they've walked away from the sport, are these people still going to be around?
And they're not.
No, exactly.
And then what happens to the person that was in the middle?
Yeah, and it's crazy because when you're an athlete, you never really think about the next step. It feels like it's going to last forever. Like I'm just going to be an athlete and then I'll retire.
Then I'm going to have money to support me for the rest of my life, but that's not really the case.
2% of athletes can go on to support themselves.
Is that the statistic?
It's the stats.
And what was the stats that how many of them go broke?
NFL players are broke within 2 years and NBA 5 years. So like it's crazy to think that.
Well, look at what just happened with Antonio Brown. Did you see all
Yes.
of that? So he was what was he guaranteed like?
30 mil.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
And then 9 signing. I wonder if he got that.
Well, apparently they're saying like he just got nothing, right?
The Patriots, they waived him. They cut him.
Yeah.
So he's not with the Raiders. He's not with the Patriots.
Yeah, but if he signed the contract, then you get 9 guaranteed on signing. Even if they waived you after that, you still get that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, 9 mil's not bad for not playing any games, but 30 mil is obviously better.
Yeah.
And now for him...
But it's so fickle. Like, he's one of the best receivers in the game. And it's like, see ya.
But he's got an attitude problem, and that's a lot of, like, a reason why a lot of the teams don't want to associate themselves with them.
Well, he's kind of gone, like, full Kanye West, really. Hasn't he? Like, with, like, all the Twitter rants and stuff.
Unless you're Kanye West, I feel like you can't get away with that.
Yeah.
But I think that he's one of those people. He's very, very determined, driven. So maybe even if he doesn't play sport again, I feel like he'll go on to do something else because he's that kind of personality. He's kind of like a Mayweather, like that. He loves himself and like
that egocentric kind of dude.
Yeah, and I feel like there's going to be opportunities for him. I think
100%.
the stuff with we don't, who knows
the ins and outs of it,
but it's not a good thing to be affiliated with.
And known as, like he had such an amazing career, and are most people going to know him for that, or are they going to remember how he left the league?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true, eh? And the crazy thing about, like, Australia's definitely bad for it in sport, but America is like, it's so gnarly with like the soap operas
my gosh,
that get played out, and like you get all of those radio talk shows, and you get all of those, like the ESPN has like 5,000 shows about football, and it's like all it is just like that. There's just these Perez Hiltons everywhere through the sport.
They love it. They love the drama in America, and it's not just in athletes; it's in everything.
You lived in America, so do you find that Americans just in general in their everyday life, if they can turn something small into like a big drama that's melting down their whole life, they will. It's just like
rather than just letting things go and just
like letting like things are the way they are. I feel like we noticed it a lot. Like we, how they say Americans are extra, and like when we were there, we're like,
whoa, that was our favorite line. Like, but my gosh, they're so extra.
Yeah.
But now that we're back here, I'm like, are we extra compared to Australians?
I sort of felt like I come back and I was a bit extra. Over the top.
You got to, because Australians, we're like little wallflowers compared to them. Yeah. So even without knowing it, you kind of do grow a little bit, which is something that's cool about America, because over there, you can be exactly who you want to be. Yeah. Whereas here, I feel like everyone does what other people...
If you stand out, or if you're different, or, it's not accepted.
The craziest thing, like, you walk, like I said, I was sort of in West Hollywood towards the end of living there. And it's like, you could watch fashion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, you could literally see, like, tall tees
Yeah.
And then you're like, fuck, okay, there's like 3 dudes wearing these like super long t-shirts.
Yeah.
And then the next day there's 5. And then you keep going to La Brea and you keep eating at the same cafe or coffee shop or whatever. And then it's like, then you'll see everyone. And then
People watching over there is like my favorite thing to do.
The trends that start, and it's just these random guys or random girls that just, they're extra. And then that catches on. Like you can literally see trends start living in that like West Hollywood sort of Sunset area. And then New York's the same.
Yeah.
So like you're in New York and it's like you just see fashion, you see music, you see trends.
And it's cool for people to express. Like you can look at people like, you're so interesting. Like I feel like I know about you just by looking at your outfit.
Yeah.
And like their confidence and everything.
Yeah, and these girls will come up to you on the street and be like, oh my gosh, boo, I love your jeans or shoes or whatever. And you know, they're just so open about it and just, It's
a really cool vibe. When I first moved there 2016, I was quite shy, and I remember I was going to I think like a Super Bowl event or something with some of our teammates, and I had on these white shorts, and I was like, is it okay if I wear these? And she's like, you do what you want when you're popping. And I was like,
okay.
Yeah,
and like that was the attitude from then. I was like, you know what, I don't have to worry about what people think. Like if I feel like I'm popping, then that's okay. And then I kind of like grew from there, and I think my confidence
definitely grew when I was in America. I was so quiet when I went over, and you know, playing the position that I played, you can't be quiet or shy. You have to be confident, you have to be a leader, and just really being over there just really helped me step into that. And
there is like a vibe, like interesting. You guys know Jeffree Star?
Yes, the makeup guy.
Yeah, the makeup dude. Yeah, so I used to hang out with him a bit through like friends. So I had friends that were really good friends with him, and we went to Hawaii and it was before he was like, it was just before he really blew up with like his cosmetic thing. And like he was this, like, I don't even know what the fuck you'd call him. Like, I don't know that he's trans. I don't like he's gay, but I don't know like he's not trans. He's not like, he's just this like gay dude that dresses like a chick.
Eccentric.
Like, he's just such a unique guy, and it's like that was like an eye opener hanging around with a dude like that. Like I really got to see that thing in effect in America, because he's like, he owns this lipstick company, like makes lipstick and cosmetics. He's we went to the beach and he was in like boardies that a dude would wear, and it was such a weird thing to, and it wasn't a prejudice thing, like it was just so interesting to see a cat like that, just the way that he'd get around, and then the way that like people were just like, you just were forced to be cool with it. You couldn't eat, you didn't even get a chance to be like, the fuck's going on here? Because he was so like unapologetic
and so comfortable in his own skin.
And that's a super American thing.
That's an energy as well. Like if you own something that you're gonna do, if you own it, then people can't come at you. It's only when you kind of like, you're doing something but you're not like 100%, then people like can
they see that and then they
can and then they try and attack it. But if you're like, this is what I'm doing, and you're like,
and I don't care
confident,
what you say because I love me and I want to do me.
Then people can't really come in.
And it's, you know, the craziest thing too is like with this podcast of it, you get so many comments and people talking shit.
Yeah, of course.
But like people are so off the mark. Like, and that's the thing that has given me a little bit more confidence to like see through, because I'm not the person, like I was never like, I'm going to start a podcast, I want to do this, it just happened. It happened the way it happened, and I'm trying to roll with it. But it's like, I was never really that dude, so I would sort of take the criticism a bit to heart. I'm like, oh fuck, like that's am I really like that? Am I there? You know, and you sort of you have like that little bit where you question it, and then you start to realize you're like, these people have no fucking idea what they're talking about. Like some dude commented the other day, he goes, this guy is so feminine.
You know what? I bet he's feminine, because it's usually a reflection of yourself.
Well, I'm like, hey dude, I just won 2 national championships for choking men. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if there's a less feminine activity you could do than just fucking some dude up on a mat in front of a bunch of people. And it's like, when you realize how wrong people can be with like negative comments and negative feedback and just negativity in general, you're like, if someone's missing the mark by that much, like why the fuck should I even pay that any attention? And it's like, that I think is that's the attitude that those kind of people have, like a Jeffree Star, or you know what I mean?
You definitely have to. And we do a lot of self-development, because when we transitioned from being athletes to entrepreneurs, when you're an athlete, you don't own being an entrepreneur. And we had to go through like a whole growing process of like, can we actually step into this new phase? And with that was a lot of self-development. And part of that was like when people, if there is negativity, it's usually a reflection of someone else's.
Yeah.
And what they're going through within.
It's not even
because they don't even know you. So why are they, you know, saying the stuff that they do? But it's usually something that they're going through inside, because, you know, we never feel the need to go negatively comment on anyone.
I would
whatever.
never.
Yeah, never. And, you know, and I feel like I would see something, I'm like, oh, that's cool. They're doing what they're doing. So, you know, I just keep scrolling or whatever. But I never feel the need to ever go out and put someone down or, you know, so, and I feel like it comes from within.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
Yeah. People are out here wiling these days. Like, it's
we
crazy.
got so much hate from playing in the we got a lot of love, but we got a lot of hate too, you know, just people.
What kind of stuff would you get?
Oh, here we go.
This is a whole nother podcast.
Going deep, gals.
No, but, you know, just commenting on our body type and, you know, saying we're fat. And, you know, just like, oh, what kind of hoes are playing in their underwear, like what kind, you know, just like negative stuff like that. And I'm like, you know what, I bet you watch every single week. So
yeah, and I bet you're thinking, I wish I could do that. Or or even if you're not, like, then just go and live your life. Yeah, just have fun and do whatever you like makes you happy. It's so weird to us that, I mean, we were pretty lucky, Jayne and I.
Yeah, we actually didn't even get a bad, as bad as
a lot of other people.
Did you see other people get it way worse?
Yeah, like it's definitely, I feel like we had a lot more lovers than haters.
Yeah, but I think
maybe they were undercover.
Yeah, what do you think that was all about then?
I have no idea. Maybe it's the way that we presented ourselves, or I don't know.
And we were just really good because we were focused on building our brand. We used to engage with a lot of people. We were always liking and commenting, and like people write to us, we write back. Like that was our big thing every day. It's like try and get back to people. I was
grateful for the fans that we had and the supporters, because I grew up in Australia, in Brisbane, and I didn't have any fans when I went over there. So I was thankful for even having one fan.
Like I feel like it's weird to even say that we had fans, because we're just
they're not
people,
really
so
fans. Like, they're just people that supported us.
Yeah. There's a thing that it's funny. I've been like thinking about a little bit lately, is that I was just like, for a while, and like even now I'm just like waiting. It feels like I'm waiting for the day that people wake up and all collectively go like, oh yeah, he's just a dickhead. You know what I mean? They're like, and everything just stops. And like, cause you don't feel when people will message and you see people and like people come up to you, you're like, you don't see yourself in that same way that they see you. And it makes like, anyway, so I was doing some research, and like people that literally call it imposter syndrome. And I was like, and I've just come across that term the other day. And I started like watching some videos and like reading about it and stuff. And it's like, I feel like that's a super common thing to go through, is like you feel like it's all a bit of a fake thing, right?
I listened to a podcast about this the other day. It's called like, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, F your brain. And
you can say whatever the fuck you want.
Okay,
say it, Quincy.
I've been dying. We're trying so hard not to swear.
This is why we make no money off YouTube, is because I refuse to stop swearing.
Okay, good. No, but imposter syndrome is huge. And like, it's like sometimes you have to sit down and write down like what it is that you think you're an imposter about, because it doesn't matter how much evidence that you prove to yourself that you are actually doing it and that you're the one that's responsible for like the success that you have and what you're creating. You still sometimes think in the back of your mind, everyone's gonna know I'm a fraud, like I'm not really an entrepreneur, like, you know what I mean? Like when does that change? And like trying to learn to overcome that.
Yeah, it's a weird deal.
Well, I felt it when I was trying to be a quarterback, you know, because I didn't grow up with the sport, and it was something quite new to me, and I was over in the States, and, you know, I felt sometimes a little bit like I wasn't a proper quarterback, or, you know, and the comments that I would get for the way I would play, you know, I got a lot of hate during my time playing, and not just from fans, from the actual people that own the league.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know. Like, I thought
what would they say though?
They just bagged her out constantly, actually.
So like, okay, say I threw a ball.
You won a fucking national title.
And they still didn't give her cred.
None.
Really?
Yeah. So say, okay, I threw a touchdown, but the ball was a little bit wobbly, right? But it got there and it was a touchdown. And he would be like, oh, what a terrible ball thrown by Jayne. And I'm like, I would rather throw an imperfect ball and get a touchdown than throw a perfect spiral and it not be caught.
And be picked.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? And whatever I did, I couldn't ever, you know, win, or I couldn't ever be praised for whatever I did. And I got to the point where I accepted that. I was like, you know what, they're going to hate me regardless, so I'm just going to keep doing me. But yeah, I was just like, wow, everything I did. We played like one of the best games ever in LFL history. We scored on every single offensive drive, which is unheard of. Yeah, we scored like 52 points that game. And the guys that were commentating the game were like, oh, you know, the defense didn't show up tonight, or, you know, they didn't praise us on how well our offense was. Like, we didn't get a fourth down that whole game. Like, we scored everything that we did, we either got a first down or we scored within 3 downs. And if you understand football, that's pretty incredible.
Like we balled out.
Yeah, and we got
fuck special teams. Stay home, motherfuckers. Don't be dead.
Stay on the sideline.
Go cut oranges. We'll be back at halftime.
And we didn't get praised that game. He just commented on how terrible the defense was rather than...
Did you ever call him out?
No, Quincy actually did at the championship party.
Really?
Yeah.
I would have been on Twitter and be like, fuck this dude, and then like send it to TMZ.
No, but this is the thing with the league as well. It's run by one person that you can't really be too vocal about.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they'll just avoid let you play.
Yeah.
I actually liked a comment, a negative comment about the league, and I got a message from the owner saying, if you do that again, he'll kick you out. I'm like,
really?
I didn't even write the comment. I just liked it.
It was just one of our teammates.
Yeah.
But I feel like some people as well can get it, they would let it get away. But
yeah. I was not a favorite.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, I feel like I was the people's quarterback. No, I'm kidding. Self-appointed.
That is weird though, right?
Yeah, you'd think as well, like having an Australian, she's beautiful, really good for marketing, really great athlete.
Well, they had no problems using me for all of the marketing, but
but not to the extent where they could have capitalized on it so more and like really built you up instead of like, Jayne Caldwell, can she do it? Like, it's like, yeah, she can.
And then I did it. And
like we had an undefeated season, the first undefeated championship winning season in LFL history, and they still didn't give her the credit.
They unfollowed us on Instagram
when we retired.
Really?
Yeah, that's the ultimate. That's when you know the friendship's over.
That's low. That's
low blow. That's low.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. Like they hated on Quincy too, but I feel like it was just like because she was my friend. Sorry.
Whatever happens with us, because we spend so much time together, we have like a really tight friendship. So if someone doesn't like Jayne for whatever reason, then we always get put in the same category, or same goes.
If
for
I
me.
get blocked, she gets blocked, vice versa.
That's super weird, eh?
Yeah, people kind of. I mean, we are kind of like one person sometimes, so they just put us in the same category.
Yeah,
that would have made it. I moved over to America with a friend, and that made it so much easier.
Australian friend?
Yeah. He was from here, and his now wife, they were just boyfriend, girlfriend, then they got engaged, and they got married. But yeah, so the three of us like lived together pretty much the whole time. Like I sort of moved out with girlfriends and stuff here and there, but I kind of always would go back and live with them whenever that shit went
warm,
tits up. Yeah, the airflow in here is not the best.
It's all good.
Or they might have turned the aircon off out there.
They're trying to sweat us out there.
Wait, we've got
you should have been nicer to him before we came in here. Like,
well, that aircon's like literally freezes the place. So then it only comes in here, and we build all these like silencer boxes, so the airflow is not as good as out there. So then out there they all freeze, and then in here is like nice. So we got to get some anyway, we're still building, but it'll get better. So they'll probably just turn the aircon off.
It's all good.
It's not even summer yet, so we might be in trouble when summer rolls around. But yeah, it made it like I couldn't imagine living there because it was like 7 or 8 years, and I just couldn't imagine doing that without someone from home, you know. Like it was because as much as you could think that America and Australia are quite similar, like there's such a massive cultural difference, and I don't think I could have lived over there by myself for that
I don't know how I would have done it without Quincy. Like I didn't have Quincy my first year, and then we met together when we were in LA, but it was so hard. I was on my own, and I didn't really connect with Americans because just their mindset and their mentality and things, how they approach things, I didn't really connect with. And there were a lot of people I met who were amazing, but at the same time
it's different, huh?
It's different, yeah. And I don't know, sometimes Quincy and I would look at each other when someone says something, we're just like, oh, Americans.
No, I totally, like, even now for me, like spending so much time over there, like I got a good group of friends, but there's only a few people that I still talk to, like a lot, and they were outliers to me. They weren't like the average kind of American dude. And it's nothing against America. Like it's not that, you know what I mean? It's just, there's more of a cultural difference than what people expect, and it's even more than I expected by like far and away. But it's such a different experience living in another country. And I mean, can you imagine going to Europe?
Yeah, I think it's like the same anywhere, and it's not so much the people, because I have so many really cool American friends, and I actually love America, and
I love
to
America
eventually
too,
live there, because I feel like that's just my vibe.
But even when we were there without each other, you know, it wasn't as fun.
Yeah, I went. I was going to say home. It's not home. I went there for Christmas this year, and Jayne wasn't there. By the time I came back here, I was like, oh, America's actually not the same without you. Like, do I love America, or do I love America with you?
Yeah. No, I totally get that. Because like me, Jay and Patty are actually, they're moving back here. Like they've been there 10 years now, and they're moving back. And I'm so excited for them to come back because, you know, like you get such a special connection when like there's nobody else. It's like you feel like that's your only family.
Yeah.
And people that experience, like, even I had like a weird disconnect with my family when I lived there because, and still now with my brother, like we're not as close as we used to be because I couldn't talk to him about anything that was going on. Like, I went here. It's like they no fucking idea what you're talking about.
Yeah,
like no one can relate. And then it's like you can say, oh yeah, I worked really tough with this and I'm struggling with it, and they don't know what to say because they're not there. So like having someone that really understands like what you're going through and what it's like to be an Australian living away. You guys were doing the same thing with sport. Like there'd be such a crazy connection between you two that you wouldn't, like, people, unless you've experienced something similar, you'd have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. Like, people could not understand how close you guys are.
Yeah, and that's something that we're really proud of, actually. Like, people comment all the time, you know, you two have such good energy together, your friendship, like, it's very rare to find a friendship like ours, and, like, we're very grateful. We had such a similar journey, and we spent so much time together that, like...
It was actually funny how we how we came together. So I played in Atlanta my first year, then I went to LA, which is where Quincy came over then and played. And we were cool. Like, there was only two other Australians on the team, so we were quite close just because the other American girls on the team had to work during the day, whereas we had time off and we could hang out. So we were close, but we weren't super close. Then the end of that season, and I got offered to go play in Chicago, and I accepted it, and I was going by myself. And and then my last night out in LA, you know, we went out and then we went to Barry's Cafe. Have you been to Barry's Cafe?
Whereabouts is that?
Lobster pizza.
It's on Melrose Avenue.
Really?
Yeah.
So good.
Really?
The best lobster pizza and pasta you'll ever have in your life.
No way.
Just for anyone going to LA,
We've
go to Barry's Cafe.
We've never had it sober, so...
Yeah, true. It's after the club, you go there. They're open till like 5 a.m. or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's like the...
So I wanted to go there for my last meal in LA before I moved to Chicago.
That's Chipotle for me.
But they have Chipotle in Chicago, so you know, it's Barry's Cafe. So we went there and we went out with a teammate, and then she left, and it was just Quincy and I. We went to Barry's Cafe together. We were just drunk and talking and, you know, drunk chat. Then I convinced her. I was like, oh, just joking around. I'm like, you should come to Chicago. And then...
and I was like, good idea. And I had, you know, when you're...
Were you playing at the time over there?
Yeah.
But you were for a different team?
No, for LA. We were both playing for LA.
Yeah, and my plan was to play for LA again. Like, I loved living in LA. And Jayne accidentally told me something. She thought that I knew, but I didn't, about, like, the people that I was going to be living with that next season. And then I was like, wait, what? And then I was like,
And what was that?
The juicy gossip.
Yeah. I want to know what would deter someone from moving in with people.
It was just like girl code, you know, like you don't talk to a guy or do anything with a guy that like one of the girls is talking to. You know what I mean?
So I'd been away for the summer because we obviously would play,
yeah.
And then I went back to Australia, and then I came back, and obviously she was seeing.
Yeah, I went to a party with this girl, and the guy that, you know, she hooked up with the guy, and I didn't know that Quincy was talking to him, so I was like, okay, cool. And then we were talking, and then she was telling me about this guy, and I was like, isn't that the guy that? And then I let it slip. I didn't realize I was drunk.
Right.
Yeah, so it was just it was actually so coincidental, but it was meant to be, because like I was like, I don't want to be in LA anymore. You know, I was drunk. I was being extra.
I was like, book a flight to Chicago.
Yeah, then she slips that in, and then I get my phone out, one eye open, and I just book a flight to Chicago. And we go straight from the airport.
No, we went from the restaurant to the house, packed up our bags, went to the airport at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., whatever. Our flight was at 9. Mm-hmm. And then I get there and I was like, oh, what are we going to tell the Chicago coaches? Like, Quincy's here with me. So I give him a call. I'm like, hey,
she's like, I've got someone to speak with you. And she passes me the phone.
Yeah, I was going to do it. No.
I'm like, hi, I'm Quincy Hewitt. I play tight end. I was like, do you guys need a tight end? They're like, that's one position we need.
He was like, get on the plane.
Really?
Yeah. He's like, I'll call you back. He called the head coach. They're like, get on the plane. I was like, I'm already at the airport.
No shit.
Yeah, and then we went to Chicago. We got picked up on the other end by my quarterback coach.
It was snowing. I had jeans and thongs on.
Really? Like ripped jeans.
Aussie shit.
I woke up in Chicago and I was hungover and I was like, where am I?
What
did
I
was February. Yeah. February in
She's
Chicago.
like, we're in Chicago. I'm like, where?
She's like, where's the ocean?
Did you really not know? Like,
I didn't know anything about Chicago. I did remember, I remember that we'd done something, but I didn't remember like the gist of it.
We woke up a little bit sober in Chicago and realized what happened.
Yeah, I called my mum. I was like, I moved to Chicago. She's like, you're crazy. I'm like, oh well. She's like, do you know how dangerous that city is?
And they sorted out accommodation for me because they thought it was only me coming. So I had one room, and then Quincy and I, we shared that room because they couldn't get another room for her, and we're just like, okay.
So were you just in like a hotel?
No, we were staying at the quarterback coach's cousins. No, that's another story. That's a whole other story. No, his friend's house.
I love that side eye.
Tell that story. You can't just leave it there.
No, he told us it was his cousin.
But it was just a mate.
He told me.
No, it was someone that he was sleeping with. I don't know. She got family zoned.
Yeah, well, like, so I said to her one day, I was like, so how are you guys related? Like, are you on the mum side or the dad side? And she was like, what? And I was like, aren't you Pike's cousin? She was like, no.
Did she like him?
They had a weird relationship.
Yeah, they had a thing.
And it got weirder after he said she was a cousin.
Yeah. But it's so funny because we ended up creating like an amazing friendship with her. She looked after us. She was like our American sister.
Yeah.
Mum. I mean, she was similar age, but she was incredible. So we ended up getting closer with her than with our coach. Yeah. Like we love her, still talk to her all the time. Like Jayne's car's still at her house. Like when we go back to Chicago, we'll go there.
Yeah.
No way.
But yeah, it was just so crazy how it all went down. But yeah, Quincy and I, we ended up sharing a room for a whole year.
Like just you
one
had
bedroom.
one room in the house.
Yeah.
How was that with closet space?
Well, we had shit everywhere.
Yeah, we had 2 drawers and a closet, and they were full, and we still had clothes in our suitcases. I don't even know how much stuff. How did we get all that stuff over to America? Like, I swear we only had 25 kilos allowance to get over there.
Yeah, I don't know. So we used to train at a really cool sports performance facility in Chicago, and used to take an hour to get there. So
Fuck, that's everywhere in America.
Yeah, so
the traffic is so bad. And also, we didn't live in Chicago. We lived an hour outside.
They told us we lived in Chicago, but it was actually...
Well, that's like when people are like, oh, I live in LA.
It's like,
and
where?
And then they're like, well, I'm in Pomona. And you're like, well, you're not really in LA then, right? Because that takes 2 hours to get to at 4 p.m.
Yeah, no, 100%. So we used to drive... We just did everything together. We came like a little old married couple. We obviously had one bed. She drove 2 workouts. I drove home. We did 2 a day. So we'd drive an hour to workouts. We'd work out for 2 or 3 hours. We'd drive home an hour. We'd have food. We'd go to sleep. And then we'd drive an hour and a half into the city for team practice. 3 hours of practice, an hour and a half home. So we were on the road like 5 hours a day.
We used to do like riddles and stuff.
Committed.
Yeah, so we just got so close. Like we have our little things. We know each other's like quirks. We know...
Yeah, and that's why when I hear NFL guys complain about anything at all, I'm like, do you know what we had to go through to play?
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes total sense. Like, that whole, like, Jay and I, our thing would be in the cars. And I was just talking to one of my mates here about it the other day. I think that you get really close with people that you have the same music taste with because you want to drive places with that person.
Yeah.
So, like, anyone that you can hold a good conversation with or listen to the same music as, then you'll go like, you know what, I will go here with Jay.
Yeah,
and it's like a 2-hour drive or it's an hour drive because you're like, you know, you're going to listen to the same music and you're going to like be able to sort of have some conversations.
Yeah.
But like our friendship was formed in the car, really.
Ours too.
Like it's crazy how it works. And because America, like it takes fucking forever to get anywhere. Like we used to surf every morning. And so we lived in Temecula. And then we'd surf at Oceanside, which is just near San Diego. So it'd be 45 minutes there, 45 minutes back to surf. And we did that every single day.
Yeah.
So it's like, you just build this friendship over being in the car. You got to go to a job in LA. That's 2 hours in the car. You got to go to the airport. Like we'd fly, when we were doing the motocross stuff, we'd fly out on a Thursday, be at the race Friday, Saturday, fly home on a Sunday. So it's like an hour to the airport. Then you're in the plane together. And then you're driving to wherever the race is together.
Yeah.
And then you're there for a couple of days. And then you got to do that all over again. So it's like you're just sitting next to a person for so many hours. Like you end up knowing everything.
Yeah.
Like, so I can totally relate to that.
And we loved road trips. So like we drove 18 hours to Canada.
To Ottawa and Toronto.
Yeah, we drove to Houston. We drove to New Orleans. Like we drove a lot. Like we just
whenever we had time off from a game or, you know, it was at the end of the season or whatever, we always went on a road trip anywhere.
Yeah.
And because in America it's so much fun, you know, on the road trips, like they have the big highways, they have all the truck stops on the side of the road, and it's actually faster to get to some places anyway.
It is faster than flying sometimes.
Yeah, because the security lines at the airport and all, it's just a mess. And I'm just like, I prefer driving. You can leave whenever you want, and then it's like a journey. It's like an adventure.
We like stop up and do like the funniest stuff. We always
we need to tell about Shipshewana.
Yeah, go on.
We took a 2-hour detour once. We were going to Indiana for a photo shoot or something, or maybe to watch a basketball
Indianapolis.
game.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was. And I don't know how we got this fascination for the Amish. We were just obsessed with them.
Isn't it weird?
Yeah.
So weird.
Yes, I'm totally with you.
So we drove 2 hours out of our way. We went to Shipshewana, which is like the
Amish capital of Indiana.
Yeah.
And then we just drove the streets, just like looking at their houses, looking at them.
They had buggies in the driveway where cars would normally be, and, you know, the horses out the back, and they were just dressed in the full gowns outfits, and they had the long beards, and I was so fascinated by it.
Like you think it's in the movies, like you just don't think it's legit, and then you see it and
I
you
think
still
that's
like
all of America. Yeah. Like all of America, you're like, no, that's a fucking movie. Like that's not real, right?
Like, do you think their police cars are like 35 years old? You see them in the movies when you're a kid, and then you get there and they have the same
shit.
Like we have these like really new modern cars here, and the police cars there are like the old school ones in the movie. It's like, is this real?
Dude, I used to date a chick that owned an old police car. And I used to like, we'd get drunk and like drive this police car around, and like we'd get one of the sirens for it. We'd like pull people over, then we'd drive off. You get in so much trouble for that shit.
That's so funny.
But yeah, it was funny. Like anytime we went anywhere with her, like the cars would just slow down around you.
That's a cop car.
Yeah, because they're like, it's a cop for sure. But yeah, no, everything in America is like the movies. Like there was some a company that I'd work with, and they were in Compton, and I'd like drive in Compton, and I'm like, fuck, it's just like the movie. Like Compton is exactly like every rap song and and I got super into like hip hop and rap over there because it was just so sick. Like I got the references. Like my business partner, at the end of my time over there, he lived in Lawrenceville, Georgia, which is Gwinnett County.
I lived in Lawrenceville when I was in
Really?
Atlanta. Yeah, that's so
Really?
crazy. Yeah,
No
I lived
shit.
like way out in Lawrenceville.
No way.
In Gwinnett, we used to play at Gwinnett Arena, so I know like the
Really?
Sugarloaf Mall that's right there in
Yeah.
Lawrenceville. Yeah,
No
I used to go there all the time.
Oh, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Crystal Water Court.
Crystal Water Court. Okay, I don't.
Probably shouldn't say that on the internet. But
Where
that's
did I live? I can't remember the street name now.
But yeah, so like, but so many guys come out of like Gwinnett County and like the rap culture now.
Yeah.
So I think like Kodak Black is from there. Like so many people come out of Gwinnett County.
Yeah.
I think like Waka Flocka's from there. Like,
yeah. I've actually met Waka Flocka.
Yeah.
at a
He's
party.
actually a super cool dude. I met him at Warped Tour, and he was on our bus. That Warped Tour. He's like a really nice dude.
That's the cool thing about America as well. Like I feel like you grow up and you can see all these musicians and you can see all these actors, and then when you're in America you can go to parties and you're in the club with them, and it's like completely normal. And all the athletes, I don't know, it's just so
It is weird, huh?
It's trippy.
The first night that I went out in Atlanta, I met Roddy White and Julio Jones.
Really?
You know, from the Atlanta Falcons. Yeah, and it was just so crazy.
Julio
and
Jones is a freak.
Yeah, he
that
is.
Dude's insane.
He is. And I was with one of my friends who's also Australian, and we got invited into their booth, and the Atlanta girls were like, how did you guys do that? This is your first night out in America and you're already getting invited to these booths. We're like, oh, I don't know, let's all go.
Well, that's like, I saw Gucci Mane was in a club in Vegas one time, and so I had a table at the Bellagio, and like we had like a bit of a thing there, and so I had this table, and my buddy Jay, who I was talking about, he was the one that organised it all, and then he gets in. He doesn't really party, and we had like suits and shit, and then we get in. We got the table, and then Jay's like, "Nah, I'm fucking out," and he went to bed, and so I was just like had this table by myself, and I'm just like it was awkward as fuck, and I was just sitting there, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna turn this night around, like it's gonna be fun, and then Gucci Mane rocks up, and he gets the table next to me because he was about to play. It was at the bank at 50 50 Cents Club, and so then we were there. And it was me, tiny white dude, and then Gucci Mane with like just the biggest crew ever. And they were like spilling out over onto my thing. And I just was like, Gucci, what's up, man? And I was like, you guys can let's just move this whole party across and take over this whole thing. And he was like, really? And so yeah, I just had like this random night with Gucci Mane and like his whole entourage. And they were like the coolest people.
Yeah,
but that's
so
like
cool.
That only happens there, you know.
Yeah, and being Australian is such a good icebreaker as well. They're like, they hear you,
they love it.
They love it. They hear you talking. They're like, oh, where are you from? Like,
and they just want to know more. I feel like, I don't know if it's just Australians like down to earth kind of personalities.
We're so approachable. Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Wherever we go,
we always meet the most random cool people every single, like all the time.
It's insane.
That was a thing that I was really cautious to not get addicted to though, because I feel like, well, I definitely know people over there that's like that was their card, and like they just wanted to play that card all the time, and it wasn't super genuine, and I was like, oh, we got to be careful that you don't, because I was like, at some point I'm going to move home and no one's going to give a fuck. So it's like I can't live my life constantly just pulling that card all the time, you know, because especially with girls over there, like you could just pick up girls so easily by just going full blown Aussie, like everything that you did, and then you come home and then it was just like, fuck off, bro. You know what I mean? So I was like, I was like, do not get addicted to playing that card, because like so many people, that's like they just can't, like once you get a taste of that, that's their only pickup tool. Once you get like you have a taste of that shit, you're like, that's just your thing forever. So it can be a weird deal.
You can even forget, like when you come home and then someone like approaches you and then you talk and it has no effect on them and you're like,
usually they're asking for my number by now.
You're like, excuse
me. Don't just leave. That's funny. But it's true, like that shit. Yeah, that's for real.
It's real. People are like, I could listen to you talk all day. I'm like, you can do it.
But you got to be careful. It's a trap.
Yeah. It's a trap. It is a trap. That's why I'm moving back there now.
But some people, man, that's like, they just get so deep into that whole thing. Yeah, and a lot of people would always say to me too, like, oh, how'd you live there for so long? You didn't lose your accent. And I was like,
you can't. And you know what?
That was money, baby.
We actually have a friend who sounds more Australian there. I'm like, you didn't.
I was that guy though.
She's like, hey mate. I'm like, you didn't even say that.
Yeah, you didn't say that in Australia.
No, I would do that, and like mostly with work though. Like whenever it was work, I just wanted to. Whenever I was in like business meetings or like pitching stuff, I'd want to just be like, go in there and just like, that dude's gonna remember who I am. You know what I mean? As opposed to just like being sort of. So that's
a smart business move.
Oh, it was crazy good for that. But in like social situations, and then like you just don't want to get to the point where you go to a party and they're like, oi, come here and say this, say that, or say shit on a party, and you're just like, oh, I'm fucking done with this.
I got over so many conversations. So many times they'd ask me like, oh, do you have kangaroos in your backyard? I'm like, no, I don't. I live in Brisbane City.
It's like any other city.
They're like, well, we can't come and visit you because we don't want to die. I'm like, you live in Chicago.
You live on the south side of Chicago and you're worried about snakes when there's guns on every single block that you live in? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Was that weird for you guys, like knowing that you're in such like a violent place? Like, but the thing what I got very it was like really startling to like know where the term wrong side of the tracks comes from. Like you can literally stand on a train track and there's this one place in like Burbank where it's like super nice railway track, fucking ghetto.
Hood,
and it's like, holy, this like, whole like wrong side of the tracks is like actually real. Like that comes from here. There's like a railway line. This is one suburb. That's another suburb. And it's like, it was always a tiny bit unsettling over there.
Yeah. Well, in Chicago, it was a highway. One side of the highway was nice. The other side wasn't. And you're just driving along and, you know, you look
if you get off on the wrong exit, like, don't stop at the lights.
You don't stop at the red light. You got to be really careful about even just looking at people when you're driving. You just got to keep your eyes on the road and don't look at anyone. And you just have to be really careful about where you go. And
I mean, we weren't super cautious because we're very inquisitive, so we like to push the boundaries.
I remember the first time I heard a gunshot, I thought it was a firework.
Where was that at?
That was at practice.
We practiced on the south side of Chicago because majority of our teammates lived on the south side of Chicago, so it was close for them. And also it was a nice field. It was near the...
Yeah, it was in a south. So
it wasn't city south. So it wasn't south side, but it was on the way there. A couple of streets down and
And so what, you just hear like a one shot pop off or like multiple shots?
No, I heard one. I mean, we've heard a couple, but every single practice there were sirens, you know, police or ambulance, fire. Every single practice, we got used to hearing the sirens. That's how crazy it is. You come back to Australia, it's so quiet. You'd never hear the sirens.
That's like New York. It's constant. Every time you get there, it's like beep, 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 beep. And then like by the end of your trip there, you just don't even hear it.
Yeah.
But I think Chicago as a whole, like, because both of our parents, when we went there, were like, you know, that's
so worried.
They call it Chirac because more people die from gun violence than they do in Iraq. But the people there are so nice. Like, we loved Chicago. The Midwest people, so friendly, so funny.
Because it's kind of like country but city. You know, it's like, but a lot of the surrounding cities around Chicago, they're quite country, like Indiana, St. Louis, what are the other ones? Oh, Milwaukee. So they're all quite country, and then parts of Michigan as well.
And to come from LA, which is quite pretentious and you know what I mean, like that vibe of just like people are very city.
The first question they asked you was like, what do you do?
Oh, you don't ask my name. People want to know your resume and who you know before they want to get to know you. Whereas in Chicago, they're like, oh, you want some chicken? You want to like come and hang out with my family? Like come to this barbecue? Like everyone, it's just a different vibe.
I loved Chicago. And you know, there are parts of Chicago that are quite dangerous, but then there are other parts that are so beautiful. And it's like any city in America, but Chicago was really special. Like the downtown area was, you know, it had old school architecture and it was just really beautiful. And it was, you know, there was a big Italian community there, and we made friends with a couple of the mobsters. No.
Really?
No, yeah, we actually did.
We can't talk about that.
Yeah, we can't talk about that.
I got a mafia friend in LA too.
They're so nice.
You'd go to like we'd go to dinners and stuff, and it's like full blown, like there's 40 of them there, and it's like right up in the nicest parts of Beverly Hills. And it's like, fuck it, again, just like the movies.
Just like the movies. And there was this restaurant that we went to, and it's an Italian restaurant, and by the time we moved downtown, it was right around the corner from where we live, so we went there all the time. And on the wall are photos of Frank Sinatra and Robert De Niro, and like all these whole,
because it's been around for 35 years. Like every single famous person in America has dined there. It's like one of those old, like the walls are just covered in like really cool old pictures of like incredible people.
So if you ever go to Chicago, go to La Scarella, you'll see us on the wall.
Oh, you guys are on the wall.
We became really good friends with the owner.
Yeah, that's awesome, eh?
Yeah. And we would sometimes go there like the night or 2 nights before a game, you know, to carb load and get some energy. And they would we never had to pay for dinner there. Like they loved us.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome, eh?
When you're all the wait staff, like everyone, as soon as we walk in, people would be like, who are these guys? They're like, hey, everyone comes out, gives us a hug. It was like a family. So
whenever we felt homesick, we always went to La Scarella.
Yeah. So they fed us good food and they loved on us. And also he made us drink wine all the time.
And gave us watermelon.
Really?
Yeah, it was so great.
Watermelon, like we were like their kids.
That's all. Yeah, people in America are so good with hospitality, like when it comes to that. And that I loved every time I'd go and stay in Atlanta. Like Atlanta's such a good city for that, eh? Like I love, and the people that are in the city, like even just like busboys at hotels and taxi drivers and all of that, like. Man, the funnest Uber driver I've ever had was in Athens. We went to
you went to the University of Georgia game? Yeah.
So we went there and like we had like this big black chick, and she was like the coolest chick I've ever met in my life, eh? And again, it was just like she could be in a movie.
Yeah. No, they're so cool. I love Atlanta. It was like it was the first city that I lived in when I first went there, and just the southern hospitality. It's no joke.
It's different. It's a real thing. People talk about that, but when you go down there, they open the doors, and like guys, like they're not. they're not even creepy. They're like, ma'am, you're so beautiful. Like, and then they're like, have a good day. Like, they're not trying to like get your number or be weird. They're just like so appreciative of women and like want to look after you. And I don't know.
Did you like Waffle House?
Yes.
Love Waffle
Yeah,
House.
no, I did. I was trying to think what I got there. Like, because a lot of the boys would get like chicken and waffles, which I never really got that into. Like, I used to keep it pretty Aussie when I was over there.
Yeah.
And I hated the bacon, the way that they cook the bacon.
It's so crispy.
It's too much.
Yeah. I didn't enjoy it either. I stopped eating bacon when I went over there because I just didn't enjoy it.
I hate it. Like, I love the food. You could get good food in America. Mm-hmm. That was probably the biggest thing that changed in the time that I was there. Was like when I first was there, I think it was like 2011. Was it my first year there? And just like the food got so much better in that time. It's like so many people like started to appreciate what actual good food was. But like it just seemed like they never figured out breakfast until I moved like right in, like we're on Sunset basically. So like until I was right in there, and you'd get a couple of cafes, but the ones that we went to were actually owned by Australians. Because like Australia, like we talked about before, we just get so spoiled with cafes and like the breakfast culture. American food is like, we'll give you as much as we can for as cheap as possible. Like that's their base concept around food, and that's kind of their base concept around everything. It's like, we're going to give you the biggest and the best for the cheapest price. And it's like, that's who wins, to the point where they have dollar stores, you know? So like that's their culture. So I just couldn't get my head around breakfast there.
We went to a place in Chicago. It was called Yoke, and that was actually...
Yeah, that is good.
Oh, you've been to Yoke?
Not in Chicago, but I have been to Yoke.
Oh, a Yoke, yeah.
So that was kind of our best brunch
Aren't they called
spot.
Broken Yoke?
Oh, I can't remember.
Or Yoke? Oh.
Yoke, I can't remember, yeah.
But like we got into the skillets.
And the corned beef hash.
Yeah, that was what I would like. I'd like corned beef hash. And then they come in
the potatoes and onion.
Oh, it's so good. No peppers though, which we call capsicum.
They love it over there.
In breakfast? Like, I don't get it.
I don't like it.
Yeah, no, I did. There was a place that we'd go to in it was like on La Brea or something, and then they had the corned beef hash, and I just was all about it.
So good. That was my favorite breakfast, but other than that,
and I do love it as well that when you order a savory breakfast that comes with pancakes on the side, so you kind of get the best of both worlds. I mean, obviously it doesn't help because you put on 10 kgs while you're living there, but it's just nice because here you just order your breakfast and then it comes and there's no like stack of pancakes.
Yeah, I got like
just a munch on.
Yeah, with the maple syrup, so simple, so delicious.
And you know what, like so good. But I got a little bit like chubby when I was over there, but it was fine because the men loved it. They love like thicker women, and I was like, in Australia, I'm like, they don't appreciate that as much, but you go over to America and they're like, damn girl, like
you can put on a bit of weight and people are like, oh, you're so curvy, oh, you're so thick, and you're like,
I feel like that's starting to happen here though.
Yeah, but only just because
no, I don't feel
not
like
a while ago.
Isn't it funny though that how those trends get started and shaped though? Because like you can see it here now, and like I got friends that's like, oh man, I just love thick girls, and it's like that wasn't a thing before. Like it was Australia was always like the skinny model,
surfy style,
surf chick,
like with the kind of washboard stomach and like no hips, no bum.
I actually got invited to, what was it, like a model interview or agency or whatever, and I was like, okay, cool, and I went down there and I was in the room, and all the other girls in that room were blonde and very beautiful, thin, that surfy Australian look, and I was the only one that was, a little bit curvier, I had long brown hair, and I just looked different, and I was like, oh, you know what, like I might stand out. And then they obviously came back and said I was too thick for their style, but I mean,
why did you invite her?
Yeah, I was like, you saw my Instagram, like what did you expect?
I feel like it is changing. Like it's just it's one of those sort of trend things. But I think that in America, like especially in the African American community, and you get like Puerto Rican, like they're just
Hispanic,
naturally thick girls. So it's like I don't think like it's not culturally viable to have those rail thin women.
It's nice, I think, for people who have different body types. Like I grew up, I've always had big hips. Always. And my mum is really skinny and both my sisters are really skinny. So I was like, where did these hips come from? And I was always like the big sister. And then I went to America and they loved it. And I was like, I finally felt like it was okay to have my body shape. Whereas I grew up always wanting, because I used to surf when I was growing up. Like I was always really sporty, but I had these massive hips and this butt. And I was always like, hated it. Like I want to get rid of my butt. Now I'm like, grow butt, grow.
I was the same growing up because my mum's side of the family are Thai and I was born in Thailand. Zealand, and all the women there are so thin and petite. And I got my dad's body. You know, he was a rugby player, and I got his big, thick legs.
What background is he?
He's Australian.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, and all my cousins are so thin and, you know, like really, I don't know, petite, and I just never fit in. My auntie's always like, why are you so muscly? Like, and I was like, oh, I play sports, sorry. You know, it just wasn't accepted. And then, yeah, when I went to America, it was completely different. They loved it.
Is that a thing for girls growing up that, like how conscious have you been for your whole life of, like, body image, body type, like, how you look? Is it always a thing that is... Because, I mean... I suppose for a way with guys though, like, because I was always super skinny. Like, I was even showing my girlfriend a picture of me from like 11 years ago, and she was like, "What the fuck? Like, you were so skinny." And I guess that I was like self-conscious about that as a dude, but I feel like it's not the same as like being self-conscious as a girl, right? When you're growing up.
I think it's changed now because the internet. You have access to look at everyone and see that there are other body types out there.
Yeah.
I grew up in small town New Zealand, and the only media that we had were magazines, Dolly magazine, like those Girlfriend, whatever they were. So it's just those skinny surfy style bodies. So for me, it was like I could never attain that.
Yeah.
Like no matter how skinny I tried to make myself, it just didn't work. So for me, it was an issue. I think young girls coming through now, they can open their social media and they can see beautiful women in all different sizes. So they're like, you know what, like she's cool, everyone loves her, she's got hips like me, so that's okay. I don't know if it's changed.
Whereas back then it was very, there was one look.
There was one look.
The look.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt the same growing up. But I always played sports, so I was always a little bit more muscly than everyone else. And, I mean, for a long time, I didn't really care because I wasn't really into boys until, like, I was a lot older.
Yeah.
But once you are kind of in that, then you get a little bit more self-conscious and you think about that kind of stuff. And, you know, I had my mum's side of the family telling me that I was, you know, big all the time. And, you know, that kind of stuff gets to you. And then, you know, we got into the LFL and they're very body conscious there. And Quincy and I have been on the fat list a couple of times.
Oh, really? They have like a list for
they have a list.
What girls need to slim down a bit.
Yeah,
but you want to be big. Like, you're having fucking legitimate collisions with people.
Yeah,
like.
but they just want you to be lean and toned, which is fine because that's athletic. But yeah, they make you feel... Well, some girls, they made them feel really bad about themselves. And yeah, I think it's just not the right way to approach it.
Yeah, I think that encouraging people to be healthy and fit, especially if you're playing a sport in that outfit, is like, and that's their brand. So we definitely get it. But I don't.
But creating a fat list.
Like, we were on the fat list there. Like, I mean, we're thicker, but we're not fat.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that we're fat.
No, not at all.
I'd like to be that size again, actually.
Actually, I'm looking pretty good there.
Yeah, so like it kind of does mess with your head, especially when you are training all the time and you're like, what more can I actually do?
Yeah, like there's nothing else I can do, and I'm not giving up my sweet. So
chocolate. Yeah, I don't care, chocolate.
Yeah, I was like, I need something to keep me sane.
I just got to change this. I forgot to delete this card, so I got to do something real quick.
Okay.
Sorry, we'll take a 2-second intermission.
Okay, cool.
No worries.
Oh. Yeah.
Have some water.
I forgot as soon as it started. I was like, shit, I didn't delete what was on this card. How's the podcast so far, guys?
Good.
Yeah, really good. I'm having fun.
That's the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry, rookie move on my behalf.
Yeah, I can't believe we're on the fat list then.
Yeah, we're killing it. I mean, I have a little bit of a muffin top, but those undies were tight as shit.
It was so tight. One size does not fit all.
Is that what they said?
Yeah.
They gave us a uniform. It was one size fits all. So the linemen wore the same uniform as the receivers.
Well, that's probably like part of the...
So that's why those undies on me, I used to get the undies and I used to rip the seams. Because otherwise I'd dig in and burn.
Yeah.
That's probably part of why they... Like, the one size fits all thing is like, this is how we get you to all look the same, like the way that we want you to, you know?
Yeah, and they're just cheap. They just wanted to make the uniform cheap and easy because the uniform gets pretty much destroyed every game, so you get a new uniform. So I think that it's just cheap, mass produced in Asia or something.
Yeah, in China it was. Yeah,
makes sense. It's funny that you said that with like, I didn't care until I started caring about boys.
Yeah,
but it was funny because like, when I was growing up, even still, I'm like, don't girls choose boys? Not that, you know what I mean? Like, I always felt like it was the girl that had the choice of like, if they dated a boy. So I don't know whether it's like maybe that just wasn't one of the cool dudes that got to like choose the girl that he wanted. But for me, it feels it's so weird to hear a girl be conscious of themselves about like what a boy will think, because I'm like, don't you guys pick? Like, aren't you guys the one that make the call on this?
How funny, because like I feel like on a girl's side, you know, you want to, I don't know, you want to look good and you want to be appealing, but yeah, I don't know. I was super shy growing up, so my experience is probably
we were just talking about this. Actually, we were like super frigid.
Yeah, I was so frigid.
That's so good. I was pretty frigid in high school too.
Yeah, because I went to an all-girls school from grade 3 to grade 10, so I didn't really have that much exposure to boys. And the ones that I did, it was because I have an older brother and all of his friends and the guys that I did athletics with. But other than that, I didn't really. And, you know, because I was more of a tomboy growing up, so I wasn't really into that. And then I, you know, started liking the color pink and started putting on makeup. And, yeah, things changed a bit.
I think it's so funny what you think as a teenager of how it all kind of works. Like you're so limited on your like thoughts and like what you think other people are thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
And you are definitely more conscious about what people think about you. I just remember being in school and constantly being on guard about like, I don't know.
And I remember I had all my girlfriends at the time that, you know, they were like kissing boys and they were doing so much like things with like so many things with boys, and I just wasn't at that stage yet. I don't know if I was a late bloomer or what, but
do you reckon that you caught like, so when you did leave school, when you did start dating dudes, did you feel like you had to play catch up, or did it kind of go smooth?
What do you mean, like after school?
Yeah, like did you feel like you were, when you did start getting into dudes, did you feel not getting into dudes, but when you did start like dating or whatever, did you feel like you were behind the 8 ball?
Yeah, because you know
that's interesting.
Yeah, because when I started, girls were already on third base and stuff. You know, I still had a bit on first base now, but yeah, I felt like I had to catch up and I just didn't have the same experience yet. So, and I think that made me more frigid because the guys at that time, you know, they've already done stuff with girls.
And it builds it up in your mind to be bigger than it is.
Yes. I remember that for sure.
Yeah.
Like I remember, you know how you used to talk on your family phone? Like I could talk to hours for a guy that I liked. Like we could talk for hours after school. But if I saw him in person and my eyes were down,
so shy. Straight past. I was exactly the same. I could talk for hours.
And like MSN and shit. Yeah, that's what I remember.
And texting on that Nokia phone.
I never really text much. Like I never was like a big texting person, but I used to be on MSN all the time.
Yeah, MSN.
But I was like a computer nerd as well, so I used to like make fucking music and like program.
LimeWire.
LimeWire.
Yeah, a lot of LimeWire. Yeah. But yeah, it's weird, like, and especially now, like, because as I'm starting to get older to the point where it's like you want to get married, you want to have kids, you want to like sort of do all that stuff. It's like relationship becomes like a different thing. So I feel like you have like stages of like what your interaction with the opposite sex is, and it's like you'd sort of think you think that it's like the same thing and it's you're just trying to figure it out, but it's almost like where we have these different stages of interactions with the opposite sex or with whatever sex you're into, and it's like it's not this one thing that you're still trying to figure it out as a kid, but it's like you're getting it wrong. It's like, well, it's like that's that style of relationship. That's all you're able to have at this age. And then you sort of, as you get on and you want different things, it's like it's constantly like changing. And it seems it's weird to think that there's two perspectives of like what men want or see as a relationship and then what women want. It feels so conflicting a lot of times too. So it's like really it's weird to like to make it is like a weird thing, that you have to like figure out, and there's really no like guidebook for it, right?
No, there isn't. And I think the only thing you can do is like try and take the lesson from each thing. I think that's where people go wrong, is that they have an experience in a relationship and then they repeat it in the next one, rather than like, this
learning
happened, I really liked it or I really didn't like it, and I'm going to try and like, whether it's something that I need to do or like I need to maybe date someone who doesn't, you know what I mean? Like really evolving with it rather than people repeating that same cycle.
Well, I feel like that's something I've been thinking a little bit about lately. I feel like the mistakes that I made in relationships is like I sort of was blaming my ex-partners for like the same thing. But when you really look at it and you mature, it's like, no, you did the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, and when you get angry at a person in your relationship, I think a lot of times you're just angry at yourself.
Yeah.
Because so many things are avoidable. But it's like you made that mistake over and over. And it's like you get angry at yourself because you're like, well, I fucking could have avoided this argument.
Yeah.
But now we're arguing, so I'm mad at that person. And it's like, it's really hard to break that cycle of like doing fucked up shit yourself that then is what causes those problems.
Yeah, and it's easy to blame someone else, but you know, you go on that journey of like self-growth and you realize that a lot of things in life are all because of you, you know, like you got to take responsibility for what you did, but a lot of people don't find that, you know, it's because they go back to that, you know, blaming that person for what happened in the relationship rather than looking within. And I feel like that's just a journey that we're all going on, and and we're all going through, and I don't know, it's
some people either evolve with it or they continue blaming and they keep attracting the same type of relationships, or they keep showing up the same way. A lot of people as well like want this perfect relationship. They want all of these different qualities, but they don't embody them themselves. And I had this experience myself. Like, you know, I met this guy, I thought he had like all of this amazing, and it turned out it wasn't. But all the things that I wanted, I wasn't showing up like that myself. And I was like, Quincy, you actually, to find someone like that, you need to, do you know what I mean? So
what kind of stuff would you think? Like,
well, just like a whole heap of things, but just the way, like
just being a good person, and
like all of the self-development stuff that he did, and like the success that I wanted in my own business, which I wasn't at that point yet. Like I wanted that in them, and like just all the different qualities. I thought they, you know, how they interact
and how they
with
were
people.
wishy-washy sometimes.
That's the massive one. My ex-boyfriend was so wishy-washy, and I was like,
with what? Like,
just like he would tell me one thing and you'd do another. He's just flaking, and like he just was never true to his word. And I was the wishy-washiest person in the world. Like I was just so like, I used to just say I was carefree, but no, it's bullshit. Like I just didn't show up how I needed to show up. And
then she was wondering why she wasn't attracting that into her life.
Like, why do I attract
guys she
guys
wasn't embodying
that are
that,
wishy-washy? And it's because I was wishy-washy. And until I understood that and I was like, owned that, and now it's something that I like pride myself on. It's like, you know, if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. I'm very like structured, more so than I've ever been in my life, with especially now that we've got a business, it has to be like that. But I've never been like that before, and I thought it was okay, and I can't believe that it took me 32 years to like get that. Like,
but you know what, some people never realize that. So
1,000,000%, like 1,000,000%. People can go through their entire lives blaming other people for the things that happen to them, and it's fucking bullshit.
100%. So I think as long as you can look back at yourself and go, that's why I'm attracting that, because that's who I am. And then now that I have changed that, I already notice it in the men that I attract. They're very much men of their word, or like, you know what I mean? Like that quality has changed, and it's just from me.
And you know, it's such a cliche when people say you got to love yourself before you can love someone else, but it's so true. Like it's a cliche for a reason. And until you can accept everything about you and enjoy being in your own skin and doing being by yourself and, you know, all that kind of stuff, you can't really get into a relationship with someone until you love yourself and until you can enjoy being on your own. And, you know, like you're responsible for your own happiness, and you can't ever expect someone else to take on that burden. Like, and a lot of people, they have to add to it, exactly, but you have to be happy on your own first. And I feel like that's something that we learn as we go, but that's why the blame game happens, because, you know, they're blaming someone else for not making them happy, but they're not happy themselves, and that's their own fault. I
totally agree. And I think that a lot of times there's like I see this a lot with not so much my friends that I'm around now. I think you slowly sort of work more towards like the people I guess like the 5 people you hang around with are like the people that are sort of most like you. But I'd see people where it's like, I used to go mountain bike riding a lot, and my mate's wife would just fucking be over it every time, and I couldn't understand it, because I've always been a very selfish person with my own like what I do. Like I'll surf when I want to surf. I do jiu-jitsu, so I train as much as I can. And like to some people it's like that's selfish. Well, it's like, but in my eyes I'm like, well, I need to do this. Like I have to do this for me to even have anything to give anybody else. And it's like you'd sort of hear the term like you got to fill up your own cup before you can fill up somebody else's.
100%.
And I'm so unapologetically into that type of living, because like I know that when I've lived a different way, it just hasn't worked out. And I'd see this, my friend, and he'd want a mountain bike, and that was his thing. That filled up his cup. And it became like this power struggle between his wife and him getting to ride his bike, and it was the same with like all the other shit he wanted to do. And I'm just like, I don't fucking get it. Like, why is it becoming like it's you versus this thing that he's trying to do. And I think it comes down to like this attention thing where it's like, and it's both ways. It's like this example's a girl, obviously, because he's my friend, but guys can do this shit as well. But it's like they just want the other person's attention so bad that it's worth having a fight over something, because it might be negative attention, but negative attention's better than no attention at all.
And you know what, if that's something that they're seeking, then that means there's something lacking there in the relationship. So Quincy and I, we used to have a book club and we read this book. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called like The 5 Languages of Love.
I haven't read it, but I've like looked at it and
the gist of it.
And you know, everyone wants to be loved a different way.
What's your love language?
Quality time.
And mine's touch. So if I was to love Jayne, it would be to spend time with her, quality time.
Yeah.
But because I love touch, most of the time it's natural for me to touch.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? And most people love other people how they like to be loved.
Exactly.
Which is why we miscommunicate it. So he obviously wasn't...
That's a big thing that I do wrong.
Yeah, like he needs to work out what her love language... Because it's such a small thing. Like as soon as you tap into what your partner's love language is, and then you just make a conscious every day to make sure their tank is filled the way that they like it to be filled, then you're not going to have a problem because they don't need to seek out that attention. They don't need that attention.
Yeah. So he can go off and do whatever he wants because her tank is filled satisfied. And she's satisfied and she's happy.
And she feels loved.
And you know, with relationships, some people say, you know, like I don't want to sacrifice this or change this about me because that's not who I am. But I mean, with a relationship, if you love someone, then you want to sacrifice and you want to make them happy to a certain degree, right? So loving them in the way that they don't respond or they don't perceive as love is not, you know, it's actually neglect. And we had a friend of ours who her partner's love language was words of affirmation, and he just wanted to be told that, you know, he was handsome and, you know, he was a good person, all that kind of stuff. And she's like, that's not who I am, and I'm not going to do that.
I'm not going to jam up like that. And
but that's not like that big of a deal, right?
Yeah, that's what we thought. We thought it takes...
But if you actually love a person, like it should be easy to just be like, geez, you look good today, you know?
And you should want to tell them that anyway. It's like, you know, you really get me going.
So she was purposely withholding that from the relationship.
That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah. And
then the love dies.
Yeah.
What's the saying about like everything in life is about sex and power, except... Oh, fuck, I'm butchering that thing. But it's basically, it's like a power struggle, which is sort of a weird thing to think of in a relationship. Like one person sort of does hold the power in every relationship, right?
Yeah.
But it's like you have to, if you're that person, you have to be super respectful that you are that you do have that in a relationship, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole love language thing, like, because from mine is, I think from what I remember and just from knowing myself, I think it's acts of service.
Yeah, okay. a lot of guys acts of service. Yeah,
but yeah, that's true, eh? And like, but I grew up like my mum is like the most mothering, nurturing, probably to a fault sometimes. But
my mum's the same with my brother.
Yeah, but it's like I appreciated that so much, and I saw the way that she looked after my dad, and it's like, you know, you can say whatever about like roles, and you know, it's not up to a woman to do that or whatever, but it's like, I feel like if so many guys, their like love language is acts of service, then it's like, it's got to be something within us, you know what I mean? Like that it's got to come from the back in the day of like the caveman sort of era, where it's like you need to go out and hunt and provide and do those things. You had to have someone you could trust at home. Not saying a woman should stay at home, but like there was just a certain level of like, that was the person that you could count on to like do the things that had to be done while you were doing other things that had to be done.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there is like some kind of like really deep biological thing to where that is what males need. And you'd expect then that on the female side of the equation, it's like, if women are going to sacrifice to provide acts of service to love you, then there would be different requirements for a man then to loop around and then show love to a woman. But I think a lot of guys struggle because you go like, all right, well, I like acts of service and I'm getting these acts of service because I'm going out and quote unquote providing. So it's like, isn't that just an act of service enough? So I think that's where a lot of the problem comes with like the male psyche when it comes to women. And that's like you said, you can't just expect that the way that you want love is the way that you
Well,
can give it back sort of thing.
Yeah, I think with you, like you said that was the way that your mum treated you and that's what you saw growing up. And so that was the first woman you ever loved and that's what you perceive as love. So that's why when a woman does that for you, you take that as nurturing and caring. And that's because that's how your mum loved you. So I think it can go deeper to the point where you were saying, you know, the caveman and the hunter-gatherer and, you know, that kind of stuff. The woman cooks and the man goes and hunts and stuff like that. But I also think it comes down to...
It's a cultural thing.
How you were loved.
And how you were nurtured. You know, like nurture versus nature kind of thing.
Yeah.
And because I know a guy whose love language is quality time, but his mum was a businesswoman and she was away all the time. So he loves quality time because she was never around and he was just craving that constantly. So
she was there, he got that love. So that's when he felt it.
Yeah. So, you know, I think it does go deeper than just the relationship you have with your mother, but I also think that that's the first woman you love. So that's how you perceive love.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Eh?
And I think as well, not just like making someone dinner or whatever, but for acts of service is knowing your partner and there's little things that they like and just going out of your way to do like something.
The little
do you know
things,
what I mean? Like, oh, she knows that I like, I don't know, my ice cream. Like, I don't know, like, like silly stuff. Not just like, oh, every day she's going to do that for me.
Well,
but
what they say, love is in the details. So it's like that is you're right. Yeah,
you notice it when they do stuff for you that's specific just for you. It's not just your everyday stuff. It's like, oh, I'm really tired, or she did this for me because she knows. I don't know. I think it's more that kind of stuff. You feel.
Yeah, and I don't think that I don't think women should be like, oh, I don't want to do this because I'm not the typical housewife or whatever. But I think loving your man how he wants to be loved is such a great thing. And I think doing stuff for them is...
Because I think it feels good.
It feels really
going
good.
Going both ways.
Yeah. And like I saw that growing up because my mum is from Thailand and, you know, the way that they raise their daughters there is, you know, really different. You know, my mum raised me how to cook and clean at a very young age and how to take care of the household and how to take care of her man because that's how she was raised, and that's just a big thing in Thai culture. I think that's why a lot of guys go over to Thailand. But they go get a Thai wife, but that's because they know how to take care of their man, you know. Whereas my dad, he was a businessman, so he taught me how to be independent and, you know, take care of business and stuff like that. So I got to see both sides. But
we should all aim to live in that with that duality, I think.
Yeah.
Because like there's a guy, Aubrey Marcus, I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's kind of a bit off the deep end these days. But when he first started like his whole stuff, like he'd talk about being the warrior poet. And like that's something that I love now is like I think that, you know, with what I literally will train every day, like fighting people. It's super aggressive. It's very like the goal is to make that other person submit. And it's like that's one side, but then there's also like as far on that side as you go with like aggression and being like a warrior, you need to balance that out with the softest side that you can. So if you're this hyper aggressive full alpha male sort of dude, I think that if you just live on that one side of the spectrum and there's no duality to your personality, then you're going to run into problems that are associated with that. And I think that people should aim to be as far on the left as they are on the right with life. So like with the way that you were raised, saying that like you're going to learn how to cook and clean and look after your men, provide for your family, then you should also learn on the exact same end or the exact opposite end of the spectrum to how to be independent, to how to not rely on somebody else and to look after your own interest. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's to where with me, I'm like, I like to think I'm selfish in that respect. Yeah. Like I want to be the warrior and I want to be the poet. And I think it's a really interesting concept because I just think in life, if you look at everything, like wherever there's light, there's dark. And you have to know that if you're, you know, we're, as a people, we're capable of anger, we're capable of love. Like you have to be across like all of the different spectrums. And I think maybe like the problem I see with like some of my friends that are single guys that are like into, you know, trying to get girlfriends and blah blah blah. It's like you're just too one thing. Like you know, you so everything that you're doing is like super one-sided, and it's hard to exist as a balanced person when you're like super one-sided.
Yeah, I agree.
And there's you've heard about the 12 universal laws, right? The law of attraction. You've heard of?
Oh yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah. So there's like other ones, and what was it? The law of it was like the feminine and masculine energy. Like everyone has feminine and masculine energy within.
I have a lot of feminine energy apparently. Based on YouTube.
Well, apparently we have a lot of masculine energy.
Yeah, and that's something that we worked on.
But just having a balance of that, that's what the universe talks about, like balancing that out, because everyone's got it, and you just got to find.
You can tap into both of them. It doesn't make you, if you're a man to tap into that feminine side and understand that about yourself isn't like a bad thing. I think that, and also we thought about it from our perspective. Like we're very much like go and if we want to do something, we just go and do it. Like we just like to get stuff done. We're very independent. We have that kind of masculine drive, and we wondered why we attract guys that.
Sometimes we feel like guys are intimidated by us.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, is that like a thing to where you think you...
Yeah, and it's not like... I don't know. That's just what we thought. And we were like, maybe we need to like be a little bit softer.
Tap more into the feminine side.
Yeah, like we are girls, and that's cool to... Like, it's not weak. Not in our minds that we thought it was weak, but it's not... it's
but
okay to be that.
I think that speaks to that like whole power thing that people talk about in relationships. So for like a guy to come along and like have the power in a relationship, if you're a very... like alpha male type chick, even just energy wise, like you're both girly in terms of the way that you look and dress and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's like there's an alpha energy. So it's like to then be more dominant than that because like because really like everybody, that's what they say, like in relationships it's about power, and like both people essentially in every relationship think they hold the power. Yeah. Really. Like no one's going to honestly admit that like he's the one that has the power in the relationship, like that's the oldest fucking that's what I mean. But like essentially I think that's when people enter into a relationship, there is like a certain thing of like you're like I'm the dude. So I feel like the more alpha energy a chick puts out, it's like to be a guy that's not going to be intimidated by that, you've actually got to be living a pretty gnarly sort of existence to like feel like you are the one with the power, even if maybe you are.
Or being comfortable having a woman that is powerful also, and like letting her be great, and like, do you know what I mean, like letting her flourish and do whatever, and being so comfortable within yourself and what you've got going on that it just adds to you. It's not like she's dimming my shine a little bit, it's like look at us shine together.
We can shine together. Exactly.
That's like I guess what you just said about that whole it like adding to a lot of people, it seems like it's a competition in a lot of ways sometimes, right?
And Jayne's been in a relationship with someone who was a professional athlete that just little things, I think he slowly like not put you down, but like tried to make you not feel, because he was intimidated by the fact that you're Australian, you're a football player, you got attention, and instead of him being like so proud, like this is my girlfriend, it was kind of like whenever he kind of subtly would put me down or make me feel less desirable, so other people wouldn't desire me, or make her feel more shy so that she wouldn't go out there and be
but
great.
Like you said before, it's like the people they've got to be secure in themselves before,
and he wasn't. And
that's just like what I guess circling back, like what we said at the start, is like if you're not happy with yourself, like you can't love somebody else if you can't love yourself.
Exactly.
Should we talk about football?
I was just about to say, you have two girls come on and then we're going to have this whole relationship podcast. People will be like, boring.
No, well, I was thinking about, I'm like, maybe because we never really talk about that shit. I'm like, maybe there's some dudes out there that just like can't figure the fucking chicks out. Maybe that helps them out. And then maybe dudes want to hear about football. I want to watch your little highlights clip for a sec.
Okay, let's watch it.
Because I'm a big football fan, as we know.
Okay,
cool. I don't think I've ever watched a full game of LFL. Oh, okay. Bit of Travis Scott. I'm going to have to turn this down. So what was the field that you guys played on? Was it the same size, or was it a smaller field?
No, it was 50 by 30 and it was arena. So we didn't have a sideline. We had the barriers,
Yeah, okay. What's the ruling around the barriers?
If you hit the barriers but without getting hit by someone, you're still in bounds, but if someone hits you out, then you're out of bounds.
Yeah, right. And then how does the shot clock work when it comes, or the game clock work with being out of bounds?
Okay, so our games, it was a running clock up until the last 2 minutes of each quarter.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And then how would the out of bounds work in that last 2 minutes?
It would stop the clock.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So in the same sort of way. I feel like that could be something that the NFL should just implement in general, but like what we were saying before, it's like it's not that much time, right?
Yeah.
Damn, you're throwing some fucking heaters right here.
Yeah, we won a championship. We didn't win a championship from not
that's true.
from playing around. No.
So what was your sporting background with like throwing then to get into it?
Well, I was a main spiker in volleyball, so I think that's how I got my shoulder strength.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, but I had to work on it. It's a very unnatural throwing motion for women. It is, huh? And it took me a long time to work on it. You know, I had the natural arm strength and accuracy, but with my technique, just to fine tune my game, I had to go out to, quarterback camps and work on it constantly.
Did you work with many, like any other male quarterbacks to sort of, right.
Yep. So the very first male quarterback I worked with was he was actually a backup quarterback, and he's from Atlanta.
Yeah, right.
His name's Charlie Whitehurst, and
yeah.
So I worked with him, footwork and technique, and he gave me a lot of pointers about being a leader on the team, because the hardest part about being a quarterback, everyone thinks, is the physicality, but it's actually the mentality and being a leader and being cool and calm under pressure, because if you freak out, the rest of your offense is going to freak out. So even though you guys aren't doing well, you're not driving the ball, things aren't working, you have to be cool and calm and keep everyone happy and keep everyone believing that you can do it, because if you freak out, then it's just not going to go well. So that's probably the hardest part about being a quarterback, in my opinion. And Quincy can tell you, if the quarterback is frazzled, you're frazzled. And
it comes down, it trickles down.
Yeah, it
from
trickles
the top.
down.
It's the same as your coaches on the sideline. If they're losing their shit, and then
you're trying to keep it calm, like
and it's like, okay, like let's just keep it together. This is our game. Like let's do what we do, rather than like there's so many moving parts, and obviously when you're playing, you can't see what happens. Like I'm on the line, I'm Jayne's like left tight end.
So you've seen the movie Blindside, right?
No.
Michael Orr, Blindside? No.
Oh, okay, it's a famous.
Well, she's so the
It's famous. You should have seen.
Yeah, you should. You really should.
Blindside. The blindside tackle is the guy on the quarterback's blind side. So I'm a right-handed quarterback. So my left, I can't see my left.
Oh yeah.
So it's the most trusted position on the field, because she's literally got my back.
Yeah.
And that's Quincy's position. So it's ironic that we were best friends. She's got my back on and off the field.
That's
But
cool,
no, it was really good, because she genuinely loves me, and she will protect me and go out of her way to do that.
Because you do hear about guys that like don't like the quarterbacks, and then they just don't want to play for the quarterback, because like essentially you've got to put your body on the line to protect her. And then if there isn't that respect, then you do hear about teams like running into those problems, right?
100%.
Yeah, well, the first year we were in Chicago, Quincy played on the right side. So when we were in LA, she played on my left. And then we went to Chicago. That first year, they moved her to the right side.
They only had the right slot available.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and the girl on the left, I didn't really know her. She didn't know me. They'd changed quarterbacks a couple of times, and we didn't have like a great relationship. So I didn't get protected quite well. Got two concussions.
And I think as well, like we had this conversation with our coach, like my coach, when I was playing, like my technique wasn't always perfect, but I would get the job done. And my job was to make sure no one came through on that side. And he would be like, Quincy, your technique wasn't good.
Like her footwork wasn't right. Or
like he would pick me up on something like that. And then the girl on the right side, he's like, oh, perfect technique.
But she would let the person through.
She's like letting them through.
He lost sight of the goal.
I'm like, okay, so maybe my footwork wasn't right, but I did the job. And I was like that was my thing. Like no one's coming through. Whereas the other girl was like, well, my technique is good, but like you're not doing the job. So I don't know, there's like a catch-22, and I guess over time.
Yeah, but then the year that we won the championship, they moved Quincy back to the left, and I was protected on the left.
And then that's got to give you more confidence to like stand up and like stay in the pocket.
And actually stay in the pocket. Yeah, exactly. Whereas the first year I was always kind of worried, so I'd always kind of look back, and my eyes weren't downfield on the receivers where they should be, just because I was worried about my blind side. So having Quincy there really made me feel more calm. And just the year that we had where we went undefeated, and I feel like all the moving parts were pieced together, and everything was right that year. Whereas our first year there were a lot of things, we were new to the system. I had to learn a new offense, and I was still kind of learning it. I was the relationship I had with the OC, the offensive coordinator, we weren't super tight, and usually when you run an offense, you play to the strengths of your quarterback.
Yeah.
But he was using an offense that was with the quarterback prior to me.
Yeah.
And we had different strengths. So I wasn't able to play my game.
And like, how would you describe your style of play as a quarterback? Like, what would you prefer to do?
I'm a running quarterback. So I'm not like Tom Brady, the traditional pocket passer. I'm more like Cam Newton or Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson.
A really good example of
that.
Yeah,
you know, running quarterback. And that's kind of where I get my confidence from, you know, just run a couple of times, get hit, and then I'm not so nervous. You know, the nerves kind of shake, and then I can really settle into the position. Whereas they wanted that first year, they wanted it to be a passing offense, you know, like pass first kind of offense, and which was good. And I was still working on my passing game, getting to know new receivers. Everyone talks about the chemistry between receivers and a quarterback. And I was still getting to know them. You know, I didn't know them quite well. I didn't know the offensive playbook. I was learning their route system. What they called the routes were completely different. You know, it was opposite to what I'm used to. So that first year I was still kind of getting used to it and getting to know it. I wasn't able to run as much, and I didn't feel as confident in my game that first year I was in Chicago. And then also I had a girl that I didn't trust on my blind side. So there were like a couple of moving factors, and we went through that year and we lost in the playoff game in the Eastern Conference Finals to Atlanta, who's our rival. And that was the first time, I think, in 4 years that the Chicago Bliss hadn't been to the Legends Cup. And, you know, it was on my shoulders.
So maybe that was why.
It was really
I'm not blaming any of that. I'm saying, like, for me,
but
that's...
for her, like the owners or whatever, like maybe that was like their post to stand on, you know, like, oh, there it is. They didn't make it to the final.
I
mean, that definitely didn't help the cause. But there was so many different factors. When you're new to a team as well, like the second year, like if the coaches are running something and it's not working and you're out there, Jayne then had the confidence she knows how to call it. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas
they didn't give me...
She didn't have that in the first year because we lost by 1 touchdown and we could have done some different things to like make it. But if she had had that confidence and relationship with them, she could have just taken over and been like, what they're calling isn't working. I can see that this is open. Like, Quincy, go on this route or whatever. But that's just, I mean, that's his learning process. And then the second year, you know, we gelled more. There was some changes. Everyone showed up differently and like it worked. And that's
It was
football.
a wake-up call that year that we lost in the playoff game because everyone talks about like the championship hangover. The year before we came, they won the championship. So the next year they were more lackadaisical and they didn't take things seriously because they're like, oh, you know what? Our team is amazing. We're just going to go through and win it all again.
And they had a really naturally gifted team.
Which sometimes is a bit of a hindrance.
Because in Chicago, you know, our team was predominantly African-American girls. There was like, 3 or 4 white girls. And, you know, they're so athletically gifted. So, you know, we had the fastest, we had the strongest. And I just think that the attendance at practice and things like that, like people showing up, learning the playbook. Like, if you don't know your plays on game day, like, what the hell are you doing out here?
I think, too, like, one of the things with the NFL that is really hard is that so many of those players come from such a low socioeconomic background. And it's like, you see it in the NFL, like a guy like Marshawn Lynch. It's like he's still connected to the hood. Like massively connected to the hood. And it's like, you get all this money, you get all this fame, and then you've got all these people that you're trying to look after. And it's like there's so many distractions because the people that they're connected to, like if I play professional football, like let's just say tomorrow I make the PGA Tour, I can just play golf. I don't have to worry about my brother getting shot. I don't have to worry about my sister getting shot. I don't have to worry about my dad losing his job. I don't have to worry about any of that shit. Like, I'm good. My family's good. I could just go and play golf. But like for so many people, and I think that that's like, it's like a weird expectation that from the outside in people have, unless you're in that situation, is like, oh, he's just a professional athlete. Like, what else has he got to worry about? But so many of those guys are still so connected to that low socioeconomic area, and their family is still in it. It's like, it's a big ask to then expect them to just like leave. And like even watching Last Chance U. Have you seen you see those guys like going through JUCO and they've got so much potential. And it's like that Isaiah kid's in jail for murder. And it's like,
shit, we didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Oh yeah, so you remember Isaiah and his brother, like they were like super talented.
Yeah.
They got in a car with 2 dudes from where they grew up, and then the car pulled over, and then they robbed a dude. And like, so the 2 brothers, they said they didn't, but they was in the car with this guy that went and murdered a dude and robbed the guy.
Oh wow.
And then they fled, so they're in jail. And that dude's like, that guy was one of the best receivers that talent-wise that they said that they'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And it's like they're just they're so connected. Like the roots run so deep. And even in the NFL, it's like, I think it's a good thing that they don't make so much money first few years out of college.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you ain't making that much money and you've got all these people that are depending on you, it's like it's hard to even break out of that system, eh?
Yeah, and a lot of the times when someone makes into the NFL, their families think they're making so much money, but they don't realize that they go into the highest tax bracket in the US, which is about 40%. So if they're making $3 million, they're getting close to half of that taxed. And then again,
you've got your agents, managers, all of your different...
Yeah, the fees and everything that comes out of it, they only get paid during the 16 weeks that they're playing football. So they have to make that last the rest of the year, like with all their rent and, they're taking care of their family and stuff like that. The next year isn't guaranteed. So they don't want to be blowing that money, but, when they get into the league and their family is pressuring them and they have all this stuff, they feel inclined to help them and, they're in a better position than they were before, but still they're not in a position where they can be handing out money. They're not making decent money until their second contract.
Yeah.
So I get that it's really tough for athletes going in, and I've spoken to a couple guys about it, and that's what they say, like, their families don't actually understand the finance around it and how hard it is. And
you see $9 million, you're like, oh fuck, $9 million, that's a lot of money. But then it's like, well, it's $9 million, which is then going to be
4.5,
4.5, and then you
minus
got a manager's commission, and that agent takes 10 or 15% on the $9 million, which you're getting the tax on. So then that's nearly $1 million in out of your 4.5. So it's like, it's really not. And I don't think the education's there around that stuff really either.
Yeah, it's not.
And that creating generational wealth and actually setting yourself up for life after sport, that's something that we're really passionate about, and that's something that we work with athletes about, is getting that education on not just finances, but also how you can create a passive income stream so you don't have to go back to where you started, because a lot of people do. They go right to the top and then they end up exactly where they started.
Yeah, it has like Mike Tyson lost $300 million. Like that's how much he spent over his career. Basically had nothing after he'd retired. Greatest boxer ever.
It's so easy to get caught up in the lifestyle.
Lost in the sauce.
It's just...
I feel like it would be hard work to spend it. I mean, I could do it, but... But you know what I mean? Like, that's hard work to, like, actually burn through that much money.
And, like, we talk about this all the time. Athletes love to spend money on material things, liabilities that don't actually make them money, which is cool. Like, you work so hard your entire life to get to the league.
Fun.
Yeah, of course. And I'm all about the fun. But you also have to balance it out with investing in assets that is making you residual income. You know what I mean? So that you have things coming in the background that you don't have to worry about whatever investments that you get into. But as long as you balance it out with the material things, don't just go blow all of your money on things that are like that is costing you money rather than making you money. So I think just having a good balance and just understanding and learning early about financial education and getting into that, whereas a lot of guys think that income is going to last forever, and it doesn't, and it stops one day and they're just like, whoa, like...
But you think, like, you got to wonder how much the media plays into that as well, because it's like, who are the dudes that we report on? It's like the Floyd Mayweathers and then like the Odell Beckhams, and it's like, it's these flashy dudes, and it's like a way to it's like expensive to make a brand in the NFL as a player, because it's like you've got it's so keeping up with the Joneses. It's chains, it's diamonds, it's watches, it's cars, it's jets, it's like there's a lifestyle, and it's like that's what people follow. You know what I mean? Like, people want it because that's what's aspirational. It's like you get in the league, and then you get TV shows like Ballers, and so it's like there has to be like pressure for an athlete, and not even pressure, but it's like it sort of makes sense to ball out in a way, because it's like money makes money kind of, but it's such a risk. That's a risky way. Like, you're risking your fortune. It's like you're trying to spend your fortune to try and make a fortune, and it's like, eesh, if you got a fortune, maybe just keep your fortune, right?
Well, look at people who have real money, like the owner of Facebook, what is his name, Mark Zuckerberg, and then the owner of Amazon, and those guys have real wealth. Like, they're not walking around with huge chains and Rolexes on, like, they're, because they have real money, they don't need to show it off. They're like, I'm rich, I don't care what people think, like, because I have it in the bank. So I think showing it off is one thing, but if you know you're rich, then you don't really need to show it off. And I can't remember which rapper, it was like a quote I saw on Instagram, and he was like, you know,
it's
I used
probably
to...
J. Cole.
It was like I used to spend so much money on chains and stuff like that, but then I was in a room with all these billionaires and not one of them had a single chain or gold watch on and stuff. Like, he's like, that made me think about real money and you know, it's just different, like the mentality.
I think it's different for everyone and everyone's got to choose it. I think if you're an athlete and you've got a platform where you can get, because the private jet companies will let you fly for free if you're an athlete. Like, do you know what I mean? So there's smart ways around it. You could be really bougie, but on someone else's dime, because
100%.
people want to be around you. People want to pay for you to come to events, poker nights. Like, there's so many ways for athletes to make money outside of being an athlete, which is something that we've also sourced. Like we do a lot of that for athletes, because you have these relationships, have these incomes coming in outside of sport, so then you can keep your sport money and then you can use this money as your flashy money, or you know, you can get these really cool deals with companies that will last outside of sport. So like, I think that there's a way, like with Jayne and I, like people probably looked at Instagram like they're living the dream. Obviously we were struggling female athletes, but we got to go to some really incredible places and do some incredible things, meet incredible people, and wear really nice clothes and things like that, because we utilized the platform. And as male athletes, well, all athletes, they have the same opportunity. The girls that actually use their voice, use their, you know, interact with their fans, there's money to be made everywhere if you know how to do it.
Yeah, and a guy that I knew in the NFL, he was playing for the Patriots at the time, Chandler Jones. I think he's with the Cardinals now, I'm not sure. But he told me that his salary from the NFL he puts away. He doesn't spend any of it. The only money he spends is from autograph signings. He makes $25,000 like for 2 hours autograph signing or something like that, and he just does a couple of those a week, and he's like, I just live off of that. My NFL salary goes away, saves it, he puts it in an account with a high interest rate, so it's like making money in there. And and he was like, you just got to be smart about it.
That's the thing, is like, if you're making millions and millions of dollars, like, you can live off interest.
You can live off interest.
You don't need to ball out, and like, you can make even, you know, smart investments to where it's like you're buying houses out of like different funds, and there's like, there is so many,
and buying duplexes, living in one, and all your tenants are paying your mortgages on your whole properties, and there's so many different ways that you can make it work. But I think people obviously also just get stuck into like, oh well, I'm going to buy my mum a house, and I'm going to buy this flash house, and I'm going to buy 10 cars, and then I have no cash flow.
It's crazy. That Chandler Jones, his brother is like the best,
John Jones,
like the best fighter of all time, and he's like fucking train wreck with like stuff. It's like so crazy to see both the other brothers in the NFL seem like they just keep it so together. And it's like, he's just this wild man that's off like carrying on. So it's all, I always wondered like how that sort of came about, with if you've got two of the brothers that are just so put together, and then he's just a wild man.
Well, I think they're from small town New York. They all went to Syracuse, which we've driven through Syracuse when we went to Canada, and you know, their parents are still together. They have a very nice family, and Chandler is very humble, very quiet kind of guy, and John's like just the other end of the spectrum, you know. So I don't know where that came from. Maybe just the lifestyle, being in the UFC, being in Las Vegas.
Probably the fact too that like, to do that shit, like, if you're like they say he's like the baddest dude in the world. Like, you've just got to be a gnarly dude to even do that job. So it's probably like, that was just him. Like, he's just a wild horse. Like, some horses can't be broken.
And also, I think as well, in every family, like, we're not, you know, of all of my siblings, like, my siblings probably look at me and be like, Quincy, you're crazy. Like, why do you live the life that you do? Whereas, you know, my older sister, you know, got married, had children, you know, very, I guess, traditional life, and like, she probably looks at me thinking like, you're crazy, and for me, I'm like, I could go so much crazier than this, I tell you. So like, everyone's different.
When did you go, like, did you come up with this sort of athletes for athletes plan like while you were playing, or was it always something that you guys were conscious of? Because like, you both extremely switched on, even like from talking at coffee and like the different things that you've got going on, you get sponsorship for and funding and stuff like that. Is it something that was like a decision that you made playing, or?
I think what we went through, so you know, we told you we didn't get paid playing, so we struggled.
You had to hustle.
we had to hustle, and we learned how to hustle. We learned how to get things done, and we just, figured if we want it done, we have to do it ourselves. We didn't come up with athletes for athletes while we were playing, but we knew we wanted something bigger and better. We knew we wanted to be successful businesswomen.
We wanted to travel and like keep having that lifestyle of, we were spending 6 months or so in the States and then 6 months back home, and we had so much freedom. Even though we were limited on finances, we were free. Yeah. And we didn't want that to end. Yeah. So we knew like after sport, it had to be something that allowed us freedom.
So we didn't know what it was. So it took us about 9 months to figure it out. We were lost and we had no direction, and we
were looking in the online space. Like we knew that's where it was. Like the internet's the way of the future. Social media marketing is huge and it's not going anywhere. If anything, it's just getting bigger. So it's a great time to like really launch into it.
Yeah. And then we have a business mentor. She's a female online entrepreneur. She's amazing. And she kind of said to us and sat us down and said, you guys have this platform. You have this momentum coming off of your championship win, and you have
a story that resonates with so many other people. She's like, why are you trying to go out and help everyone, which helps no one? Why don't you just help your people? Like she really helped us get clear. Like, we're so grateful.
And that's kind of how we came up with athletes for athletes, because we know it's such a hard time for athletes to transition out of sport. Just because you go from that team environment where you have your teammates, your coaches, trainers, like you have all these people around you and wanting you to be successful. Like all those people in that room want you to be successful so you can go out there and play and make the money, right? So that's why we wanted to create the same kind of team environment, but for athletes turning into entrepreneurs, where they can all support each other and elevate together. And it's just it's still in a game, but it's a different game.
And like we're still a team. Like we're all ex-athletes. Everyone that we work with is either a current athlete or an ex-athlete, and you still get to vibe with your people. So like this is something that we love. Like we talk to athletes every day, and we could talk to them like all day and night.
And the hardest step to take is that first step. So we just help, like, we get to know them a little bit better, what they want to do, what they want to achieve. And then like Quincy and I,
options.
Just give them options. We've partnered with so many different companies, and just give them all of the options, and then help them take that first step and help them feel supported as they transition out. So that's how we came up with Athletes for Athletes.
What was it like to retire after
we're not quitters over here.
Instant backpedal. What was it like to retire after having a perfect season and winning a championship? Like, what was the thinking there?
Kind of like Michael Jordan, No,
we just thought like that's the highest it gets for us. Like literally you can't get higher than an undefeated perfect championship winning season in the US, biggest platform. Like we knew that it was the peak for us
in football,
but not for us in life. Like we're very big dreamers, and like we have like big goals, and we knew that it got to be bigger and better. Like we were living just a small percentage of what we could achieve. So if we could do it in football, we knew we could do it in business. So like I think
and sometimes when you hold on to something for so long, it actually hinders you. Football took up so much of our time, and it wasn't paying us. Like we got to be on an amazing platform and get to do like amazing things, but once we won it all, and that was we're like, okay, I'm kind of ready to move on to the next thing and see what else we can get to the top of.
And it wasn't easy, because there was times where we were like, oh, maybe we should play
again. We thought about going back, and Quincy even dabbled in boxing for a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, I was going to be her manager.
No shit.
Because we just didn't want to, you don't want to let go of that athlete identity. I was like, oh, I'll just box. Like, that's cool. Like, I could just become like this like famous boxer. Like, come on, I'm 32. Like, you need to chill.
We watched, what is it? $1 Million Baby.
Yeah, I was like watching Anthony Joshua YouTube videos. I was like, yeah, I can do this. And then I was like,
he's been doing that since he was
yeah, exactly.
6.
Yeah, and he makes big bucks, and I think to get to that level, even in female, you're not going to ever get to that. And
no.
It just was taking up, if I do something, I do it like 100%. So we were spending 4 hours in the gym, and then I was at home watching YouTube and skipping, and then I was like, what am I doing?
So tired. I was like, why are we doing this again?
Were you doing the training?
She was doing the training with me just because like we do.
I was just, it was fun.
And
it's a fucking gangster move though, to just like drop the mic and be like, yeah, we're done. This is as good as this bit gets. And I know that we can do this, but in something else. Like, that's fucking pretty courageous, really.
Yeah. And it was really hard to walk away, because a lot of our teammates didn't want to. They wanted to play one more season. And this past season that went past was the 10th year anniversary. So it was like a really big milestone in the league. And, I was really hesitant about walking away, and I, thought about going back. But then I just, realized that there's just better, and I just have to stick to my decision and like live with it and just move on. But
and it's better to go out on a high, like for people to remember you as like, you know, those really cool, I don't know if they remember us as those cool girls, but like, you know what I mean, like we killed it that last season and we had so much fun and there was a lot of hype and we did what we set out to do, and to finish on that note and then to go into business.
And our team actually lost every game this season. It was really hard to watch.
Really?
It was really hard to sit back and watch and just be like, oh my gosh, like it hurts.
And were they texting you like, yeah, you guys fucking suck. Thanks for leaving. Cheers, guys.
Well, the Aussie duo did help, didn't they? No, but yeah, so they had a rough season. But that's what happens when you rebuild. A lot of veteran players, like we all left. So many of the other veteran players left, and you know, all the rookies coming through, and
it was their time to shine.
Yeah, and they've got to go through that process, because we've been through, you know, losses, and we've had that same, like, you know, you're grinding it out and you suck and whatever. So that's just the journey that they got to go through.
Yeah. Fuck, it's still it's still like heavy that you guys just decided to just go, we're dropping the mic and we're walking away.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like, there's a saying that a guy, his name's Travis Pastrana, and he's been on here before. He's like the god of 2 wheels and 4 wheels. And like his saying is winners win. Mm-hmm. And from the moment I heard him say that, I was like, fuck, dude, you're right. Like there's no restrictions. Like once you have a winning mentality, once you believe and you've achieved something and you've actually done a thing that you set out to do, that is you being a winner. And then winners win. If you apply that same attitude to everything that you do in life, winners win.
Yeah, we've had that conversation before, like, because it's been hard, like that transition, like we said, to going into entrepreneurs, and like that whole, what was the mindset we were talking about at the beginning, where you're imposter. Do you know what I mean? Like and we've had some times where, you know, people say no, and we think like, what the hell are we doing? And I think sometimes we just look at each other and we're like, we're winners. Like we can do this. Like it doesn't matter how long it takes us. Like to get to that championship we started playing in 2013 and we won it 2018. Like with this, like this is going to be something that we do for the rest of our lives, and we don't care how long it takes. Like we're going to make it work, and it's going to be like bigger and better than we ever even thought.
Yeah, and the skills that we picked up in football, even though it doesn't directly translate to business, you know, we picked up the hard work mentality, you know, never giving up, keep pushing through no matter how stressful or hard it got. You know, it wasn't easy winning a championship, and the year before I was so close to walking away in 2017 when we lost in that playoff game, and it was really hard, you know. And
she had a concussion.
I had a concussion and I got blamed for the loss, and you know, it was really like I was so depressed for a really long time, and I was like, you know what, is this even worth it? You know, I was over there, and I'm not really an anxious person, but I got so much anxiety just from all the stress and pressure of my position to succeed for a team. We played for the Chicago Bliss, which is like the Patriots of the you know, it's, you know, we have the best coach, we have the best team, they've won the most championships, and so I had so much pressure, and it was so easy for me to just walk away after that 2017 season and never look back. But then I, you know, something inside of me, I was like, I cannot end my career like this, like there's no way. And I feel like that's the same in business. When something happens, some people are like, you know what, like this isn't worth it, why am I going to keep putting my time and energy towards this? But if they just stick to it, like you're just so close to just breaking through and succeeding. I feel like that's a very, you know,
that's the quality that a lot of athletes have, and that's what we try and talk to athletes about, is like, you might not have the skills to be an entrepreneur, we can teach you those. Like we have the education platform to teach you those skills, but you just need to show up like how you did as an athlete. Like be tenacious, be persistent, like do everything with heart, like do it because you know you believe in it and you believe in yourself, and like, you know, no one else sees the goal but you do, and you just keep pushing. And no one sees like the early mornings, like Jayne and I, especially with the time difference, like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning we're doing calls, we do podcasts, we do like calls late into the night and during the day, but they just see like the stuff, oh, like you guys are always like, we were in Bangkok for a month, like, oh, you guys are just hanging out. It's like, you know, you see the snapshots of our life that we want you to see, but we grind behind the scenes.
Yeah, and we do have fun. I mean, this is why I got into this business, because I want to have fun and enjoy my life, but at the same time I always get the job done, I always handle my business. So yeah, we don't never put that on social media, and that's why everyone's just like, oh, you guys are on boats and drinking and da-da-da. It's like, yeah, but did you know before we were on that boat, like we were on this call and we were doing all this kind of stuff. And like
even driving down here, Jayne had the laptop on her lap, we had a call with an athlete, and then she was sending like 5 different emails, we're linking people with like coaches, like whenever we can, we're just like fitting it in. Yeah, and just on, like I even had, like, so my brother, he runs his own business, and then obviously this is a business, but like I had that conversation with him last night, like I was here till 10 o'clock. And we were talking, and
I know exactly what it takes, because like to do what I did in America, it took so much time, and the whole time I was there, it was just a fucking grind. Like every day was a grind. Like, and yeah, it was the same thing. Like on my Instagram, it's like, you're in Alaska, you're here, you're there, you're at MotoGP, you're at Formula One, you're with all these cool people, and it's like, that's what you'd see. But the fucking time that I had to put into it, and like I was saying to my brother, last night, yesterday I had a bit of a day where I was like, fuck, I'm just not putting in the time.
Yeah.
Like, for this to just keep going and getting bigger, and like to where, because in business, when you start, there's a period of uncomfortability in terms of like financial, the time that goes in versus the money that comes out is very skewed at the start of any business. I don't care what it is.
No, 100%.
And I'm in that, and I'm in that now as well. And like I like to train, I like to have my time, I like to surf, I like to do those things, because for the last 10 years that I was doing the film thing, and like we were doing like jobs in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's like, you cannot get to that without that insane grind. I just said to Maddie last night, I was like, man, I work hard as it is, but it's like, I know I need to work harder.
Yeah.
And it's like, you have to be super honest with yourself whenever you're in business about like, how much time is this really going to fucking take? And are you, even though you might be working 50 hours a week as opposed to 40, which is a lot, you know, it's an extra couple of hours a day on the normal person that works hard. And it's like, it's still not enough.
Yeah.
You know, you got to put in 70, 80 hours a week.
And it's like it's a mindset thing as well, I think, because you feel guilty if you take like, you know, if you're hungover and you take the morning off, like yesterday. No, but like you feel really guilty, and you're like, I'm not doing enough, and this is why, you know, things aren't moving as fast. And I think you can definitely get caught up in like putting yourself down. Like, I think that as an entrepreneur, because you feel like it's your baby, and like it's on your shoulders whether it like lives or dies, and you know, you're just constantly on your own back about it. I think that
we're like that constantly. I even dream about stuff I have to do, you know, because I'm like, let's just take a quick nap, and during that nap I'm like dreaming about what I have to do when I wake up.
And then she wakes up and I'm writing notes. She's like, what are you doing? Did you sleep? I'm like, no, I just thought about this.
Like we can't ever switch off. And you know, it's different. Like being an entrepreneur, there are so many pros to being an entrepreneur, but there are so many cons as well. Like people don't realize, when you have a job and you go to a 9 to 5 or whatever, you go to work and then you switch off at 5 o'clock when you clock off. And you know, people, they have that time where they can enjoy it, and then they know they're going to work the next day. Whereas when entrepreneurs, you don't have a schedule, you don't have a time where you're on or off, you know, you're just constantly on. And Quincy and I, we're trying to find this balance where we don't feel guilty, where we can take some time to just recoup and not think about work. But it's just so hard. We've done nothing but think about work for so long, and I don't even know how to switch off now.
But we kind of love it. Like I know that we start saying it like it's a bad thing. Like
you
right now we're so
I love every minute of it.
Yeah, and I know that it's for a reason. Like we have a lifestyle that we want to, you know, things that we want to do, and they're very extravagant, and it's all around the world, and we like that kind of stuff. So like this is like a process that's going to allow us to do what we want. And that's what I like talking to athletes about. Like you get a choice for the next 40 years. What do you want to do with your life? Okay, you know, we talk to people, they want to do podcasts, they want to do motivational speaking, they want to do you want to do it? This is what it's going to take to be able to do that, because it's not easy. And you can't just, like, you've got your story and you want to just go and share it. You need to, like, if you want to be a motivational speaker, you need to actually go and pay someone to teach you the skill.
And you got to eat shit.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing too, is that, you know, you want to be a motivational speaker. Well, you're going to go to a place no one gives a fuck about you.
They're like, who is this?
And you're still going to have to do it.
Yeah.
And then you're going to feel all of the negative feelings that come with eating shit on a stage in front of people.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get somewhere and the mic fucking sucks.
Yeah.
So then you're going to have to put the mic down. You're going to have to just yell at people. And then that's going to throw you out. You know, like, there's so many things where it's like, if you don't love the thing that you're trying to do, and you don't love the process, and you don't love that grind and appreciate it for what it is, then it's like that they're the people that don't make it. And it's the people like yourselves that talk about the grind with like a reverence. There's like a respect and an understanding that it's like, you need to fucking grind to have anything. And it's like, and then you will eat shit, and you'll use that to like motivate you as opposed to discourage you. And it's like that, what you were saying too before about the people that like knock off at 5 o'clock and they don't have to think about it. Like, how I like to look at it, and it's like, I don't know, some people get pissed off about the way that I look at it, but it's like, essentially, if you work for somebody, that person owns a business or somebody owns that business. So somebody is you thinking about that 24 hours a day. So for you not to think about it 24 hours a day, you go and work for somebody that does, because that's how all businesses operate. Essentially, like my mum, she makes really good money. She works for a big company, and she essentially has an agreement with that company that I will work for you X amount of hours a week, but you pay for my life. Like you provide everything. Like there's no outside money coming in if you don't have a side hustle or whatever. So you're literally taking that burden off yourself of like thinking about something 24 hours a day in exchange for somebody paying for your life. And when you're an entrepreneur, when you work for yourself, there's no one that's paying for your life. Like you are solely responsible for paying for your life, and that is why you think about it 24/7. So it's like, that's the thing. It's like, in my head, it's like, that's the decision you make. It's not like that should be how you think about it, as opposed to like, well, I kind of want to do trips and I want to just like do my own thing. It's like, no, you want to be solely responsible for paying for your life. That's what you're agreeing to when you're becoming an entrepreneur. You're not agreeing to having the flexibility to taking trips. You're not agreeing to making X amount of money. That's not what you're signing up for. You're signing up for a responsibility. And when you work for somebody else, you're signing up that you do whatever they say and they pay for your life. And it's a very simple transaction. And like, I think when you reduce it down to that, the question isn't, do you want to be an entrepreneur? It's like, do you want to be responsible for paying for all of your life on nobody else? And then a lot of people, it's like, when you frame it like that, they're like, fuck, it's actually not that bad working for somebody.
And this, it's got to be right for some and it's not right for others. Do you know what I mean? Like, this road doesn't work for everyone. So I think you got to work out. I think people work it out pretty quickly in the beginning. Oh,
for sure. And how many people do you know like start a side hustle and then they just never end up quitting their job?
Yeah, so many.
But and it's not a bad thing. Like, and there's times like even this week I've been like, you know what, fuck, I should just go work for somebody and just like, you know, because everybody thinks that.
We've had
stages.
Those moments all the time.
All the time. And even our parents, sometimes when things aren't working out, they're like, why don't you guys just go work for someone else? I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it.
No. And then other times my mum will call me and just the other day and she's like, Quincy, like, there's so many different ways. Like, she's like, I was just thinking like you just need more offers. Like, this could really, like, you can scale this so massive. And I was like, yes. Like, thank you, Mum. Like, you can see what I see. Because my mum is a really great entrepreneur, but I don't know if it's because I've always been a wishy-washy daughter. She just didn't really trust that I was going to, like, go into this phase. And, you know, I've tried a few different things online and obviously living overseas, and she was helping me keep my head above water. So her faith was quite low. And now is the first time that she's really, like, saying to me, like, I can see you succeeding in this. And it's such a good feeling. Because for a while she was like, are you ready to like...
100%. My dad is exactly the same. He's a really successful business owner and he owns his own business and he's been taking care of all of us for so long. And I was really quite surprised when he said to me, like, you need to go and get a 9-to-5 and, you know, go work for someone else. And I was like, I don't want to go work for someone else. You don't work for someone else. Like, why should I? But he's just worried about, you know, because he helped fund my career in the States. And after I won the championship, I bought 2 rings. You know, I bought one for my dad as well because I felt like he had so much to do with my success over there. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been over there. But I was just like, I couldn't do it. I just didn't want to bite the bullet and go into that employee mindset and work for someone else and have to be somewhere at a certain time. You know, like, I'm so independent and headstrong that I just don't want to get up at 8 o'clock because I have to go work for someone. I'll get up at 8:01 because I can, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't want that lifestyle. And Quincy and I, we've been working on this for a while now, and you know, it hasn't broken through before it hasn't broken through, and our parents were like, you know, like, you need to think about this, and now they're finally coming around like, wow, this is actually really something special.
That's awesome. And so, sorry to cut you off.
No, you go.
Sure. Because I cut people off sometimes.
No, you're fine.
So, like, what's the next steps then for you guys, do you think, for it to get to where you want it to be? Like, and like, what athletes are you working with right now?
I think the next step would be for us to get it into, so we have spoken with the education people in the NRL and the people that help athletes transition out, and they offer things like Cert 4 in hospitality and apprenticeships and trades and things like that. So
they're thinking as like putting people back out into like a civilian workforce kind of thing.
Yeah, and so we're talking to them about online.
Like, fuck that, let's keep these motherfuckers extra.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
we're
exactly.
talking about the online space, and it's very new, you know, and people, it's not new actually.
No,
Internet's
it's not.
been around
Anyone that says that, I'm just like, where the fuck you been?
Australia is just sometimes very backwards, and
Yeah,
you know,
so
they're very old school. You know, what's safe, and you know, it's things that they can guarantee for them. But
I feel like we're always, and what I noticed from living in America, we're like 6 to 7 years behind America in everything, and like that's my number that I think is quite accurate.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah, no, 100%. So things like that, we have a call with the Indigenous education people as well for athletes in Australia this week. So like, I think if we can get in with one of these systems where we're just an option, like we don't need to be the only option, but that we can actually get in front of mass athletes and say, this is who we are. These are the options that we have in the online space. If you want to talk to us, you're more than welcome to come and have a look. Just getting in front of more people. Most of our athletes are in America because we obviously played over there.
We just have so many connections over there.
And we have a lot of options for athletes that are current athletes as well as retiring. So I think getting in front of those, like in the clubs and actually being able to just go and talk to people, that would be something that we're really trying to push. We want people to just know that we're here and like have a look at what we've got.
Yeah, and we just want to start building this network of athletes. You know, you can say it's kind of like an alumni or a fraternity or however you want to call it, but just building this network so athletes in America can, you know, meet with athletes in Australia or in the UK or whatever, and just have this big network of athletes who are supporting each other, thriving in the business world. And you know, it's just something different, and we're all athletes, former athletes, you know, so we all have that, we understand the journey and what it takes to be an athlete, so we understand what it takes to be an entrepreneur. And I just think just building
and networking is like huge. Like for us, like we meet so many cool people, and the more we network, the more opportunities come to us. So say for example, we have XYZ options for our athletes. If you come into our system, we put everyone through an education on digital marketing, and it's something that we've leveraged a company in the US who are doing it the best that we've ever seen, and it's really simple, so it's easy for athletes to follow, and from there they can decide which track they want to take. But outside of that, if you're a part of you're a part of our community, then you also have access to athletes that you can be like, oh, you know, I'm in Houston, you're in Houston, oh, you're doing real estate, oh, like let's talk, let's meet. Like it's a great way for people to network and build stuff outside of what we're doing, because obviously what we have on offer is stuff that we think it has so much value for them, but we want them to just thrive as people anyway. Like that gives us joy. Like we don't want to keep our claws on people. It's like, oh, you got to just do stuff with us. Like now you have a pool of athletes who you can like tap into. They can be your friends, they can be your business partners outside of what we're doing, and that is huge. Like the growth for that and helping people actually succeed and get results, like that's important.
Yeah, because in business it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah, for sure.
So like, that network is like gold.
Yeah.
It's like, how can you tap into that? Like it's this big network of people who have that same mentality as you. They want to like create,
and they all
something.
Already have a platform and influence, and they have their own niche, they have their own things that they're doing, and just being able to all collaborate and
they get your journey, they get how you felt, they know the things that you lay in bed at night fearing, like, do you know what I mean? Like you're very connected to them, so you resonate with them, so you don't feel like you're ever alone. Like
and like, you know, it would be easy to say like, oh, well, just that, you know, they've had it great and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, it definitely is a problem for, you know, people that leave a sport, you know, for all the reasons that we've spoken about. So it's definitely cool. And it is unique too that you guys aren't trying to just go down like the straight manager role of like trying to sign them to teams and get deals and you know what I mean?
No, because we believe in that philosophy. You know, you can give him a fish and he'll eat for a day, but you can teach him how to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. So it's kind of like that same concept. Like we're not just trying to get them deals, we're trying to teach them how they can do these things for themselves, and then they can go on and build whatever empire that they want to build. Yeah,
well, they can go on and help other athletes do the same, because that's another thing. Like we have athletes coming in from so many different codes, and we can't handle it all. Like it's going really quickly, like faster than we anticipated.
Yeah, because we launched on the 1st of July and it's already been so crazy.
Oh, really? It's that soon,
yeah.
Like there was a lot of build up behind the scenes leading up to that, but that's when we officially launched. So that's when we started, and we need like athletes that also want to do the same thing that we do, like that want to help athletes and be like a leader in AFL or a leader in NRL, where they can actually just go in because they've got lots of contacts in those fields. We give them the skills, the mentorship, and all of the like self-development stuff that we did, and you know, we can help them along that way, and then they can go in and be that person. Same in the NRL.
Yeah, then they have access to the exclusive offers and partnerships that we made, that Quincy and I made. We went out and sourced all these different companies, and they have access to that, and we want them to have access to that so that they can go on and succeed.
And they can also bring to the table stuff like, they might be like, hey guys, I met with this company. That's cool. Like, that's what we want, like, because we want our athletes to have, obviously we want stuff that aligns with us and aligns with our brand and athletes, but we want to have multiple offers so that people can feel like there's something for them.
Yeah. And when we first sat down, when we were coming out with Athletes for Athletes and all of that, the vision that we wrote down was we want to have the largest team environment of athletes turned entrepreneurs in the world. Like, that's what we wrote down when we first started.
That was like our first,
and
like
now
the original mission
statement.
The original,
yeah.
And I feel like
it's starting to get really big, and people are starting to know about us, and it's really good.
And so what's next for you guys personally? Like, are you guys going to try and move back to the States, or?
Well, so we obviously want to work with the athletes that we have here in Australia and build that community environment up. But then we also, because we have so many in the States, we want to go over there and see all of them and do a tour, meet all of them, and
do some media for our company as well as them as individuals, and just like we want to just tour around.
Yeah, and then even go to the UK and just go on to the next thing. So it's, for right now, we don't really have a base or where we're going to be. We just want to go around and make sure all of our athletes are good, and we're kind of just going with the flow,
because it's like we're learning on the run. Like, every day is like something new, and like we always sit down and like go through our process, like what works, what doesn't, like frequently, like why is it taking us so long to convert this, why we're constantly just like reevaluating, changing our systems as we go.
And companies and products are coming to us and be like, hey, we want you to present this to our athletes, and they would pitch us on a new gaming app or like a gold company, or whatever it is, they're pitching us so that we can present them to our athletes. And it's really
so
cool,
crazy, because we were seeking them out in the beginning,
and now they're coming to us, and it's like, oh wow, this is really cool.
Oh, how the tables have turned. No, but it's good. So we're just going to kind of go with the flow. We love to travel, so we want to do like maybe a couple of months in the US and go and make sure that everything is like rolling there, and then
go over the UK,
and then who knows.
And so where were you guys learning this stuff from, like in terms of the self-development stuff and the digital like, were you guys kind of like doing the courses and stuff like that you always sort of see advertised and things like that?
So we've partnered with a company, like we said, it's a US based company that
teaches. It's an institute,
an actual institute. So you get certified as a digital marketer, and they have a huge emphasis on self-development, because you can't do all of the physical work and not the mindset work, and
or
you can't
inner work.
Can't do all the mindset stuff and none of the physical. It's like a balance, and like the sooner that you understand that, because in the beginning Jayne and I were like, we don't need the mindset stuff. Like,
we're good. We're cool. Like, we're great people.
Like, we just literally were like, we're like pretty well balanced people. So we're like, we'll just run all the ads and we'll just do all the stuff.
But and that's like being talented, but not knowing what it is you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So, because that's what because the whole self-development thing, like, I know some people that's what they do. They just like, and I've talked about it on here before, is like, they just spend a lot of, they're motivated to get motivated. And then they live in this cycle of like self-improvement, but there's no physical action that takes place. And if you talk to them, they're a fucking encyclopedia on being better and, getting rid of anxiety and clean your room and, make your bed, like all the fucking buzzword Gary Vee shit that you kind of will hear, but they just like don't do the physical stuff. And then I think that this is probably the category that you guys are in, maybe, is the category of, well, yeah, we're pretty well-balanced people and we actually do shit, but it's like and I've felt like this at times too, where it's like, I'm like, well, yeah, I do that right, but why? And I don't really even understand what it is that I'm doing right. But it's, for whatever reason, that thing's working out, but there isn't like a deeper understanding of why you're doing a thing. Why is this a habit? And to somebody else, it's something that they struggle with. And why do you struggle with this, but this is easy to everybody else? So I think that's more the lens that I've looked at lately, as opposed, because I'd kind of brushed it off before as like, self-development's just for fucking wankers, essentially.
No, 100%. My mom is the same. She's like, Quincy, all these self-help books or whatever. And I 100% agree that people almost get addicted to self-development.
Gluttony,
yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm so self-developed.
Self-aware.
I'm conscious and like all this
Woke
shit.
as fuck.
Yeah, which is cool. But you actually have to do it. Like you can't read about it and think that so makes sense to me.
There's so many people that are like, have made a fucking buttload of money off being woke and then just spreading that shit, like and that's like, you see all of those people that the whole drop shipping thing is like such a great example of people that, like, there's dudes on YouTube that are just like, well, what's his name, that Ty, what's his name, he was on like every YouTube ad ever. He's like, hey, this is my mansion in LA. I read 300 books a day. Like that guy. Like, but he's literally like made a living. He figured out, I mean, he's a smart dude. He's like, oh, people are just going to, like, they're addicted to being motivated, or they're addicted to self-help.
Yeah.
So then there was like this whole wave of people that came along to like cash in on all of these people that would pay like $300 for a course or $80 a month for this ebook strategy, like, and then it's almost created like a culture around that.
Yeah.
So it's like interesting to then hear you guys talk about it and then say like, yeah, we did all that stuff, but then we actually, here's our product because of it.
Yeah.
You don't hear that shit a lot.
Yeah, well, it's because we went with the action first. We didn't do any of the inner work, you know, and we realized that, you know, we were, there was like a roadblock, and I was like, why can't we like get past this little
like
hump?
we're doing all the stuff. Like we're doing the stuff.
It's like, but are we really doing all this stuff? And we weren't working on ourselves, and that was one thing that we did. And obviously the institute that we partnered with, they have some self-development and mindset work, but then we source books and meditations and, you know, all this other stuff that we do ourselves. And now we have a morning routine that we do that makes us sets us up for the day,
and just like a bit more balance. Like it doesn't need to be like, oh, you're spending hours doing all this. Like you don't have to go so deep into it. It's just like, you know, why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling? Like this is really pissing me off, or I can't seem to get past this. What is it? Okay, work it out. Okay, let's move through it.
And just understanding that you got to be self-responsible. You know, the reason you're out of reality is the way it is because of how you are on the inside, and just owning that and understanding that the situation you're in are because of all the choices you made to get there. And I feel like that's just once you're on a journey and it feels right. Like people talk about being in alignment, and you know, we never really understood that.
Do you know what? Like so many people like used to be like, you know, when it's in alignment, everything flows, and I was like, fuck alignment.
My gosh.
And like like you just shut the fuck up for 5 minutes. And then one day I said to Jayne, I was like, we're so in alignment right now.
Well, you know, we're just on the right journey.
It just feels like everything flows for us now because we love it. Like we're just on the right path.
We're on the right path. Yeah. And now that we're on this path, I feel like doors are opening, you know, left, right and center, and like all these things are happening. We're like, oh,
but
wow.
you did the work.
We did the work. Exactly.
We did the work. We ground behind the scenes, and then now I think it's just, and I mean, there's always more to do. It's not one of those things where like, okay,
we're good.
We're good.
I'm
like, no, but seriously, you just got to keep rolling with it.
And you know what's funny too, like, because I've started like looking. I've always read books. I've always read a bunch of different stuff, but I try and avoid like the Art of Not Giving a Fucks and, you know, like those kind of books. But so in a sense I was always into it, but I really wasn't into like the new wave of it, which is the YouTube sort of thing and the Instagram ads, and like that sort of turned me off it a little bit. But, you know, you'd see, like you said, like, oh, we got a morning routine. It's like, that can sound super wanky, but I have a fucking morning routine. And whether I call it my morning routine or not, I get up, I have a coffee, I sit on the couch for half an hour, I watch fucking YouTube, and then I'll do some like stretches and shit, pack my stuff for work, and then I leave for work.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm not living with like a purpose or like an intent of like, this is my morning routine. It's like, that's the habits that are formed.
Yeah.
And it's like, there'd be some shit in that morning routine that I, like, if I'm being honest, I don't like. I wish I got up, made a coffee and went straight to surfing every single morning. I live 300 meters from the beach and I moved here to surf, and I don't really surf that much. And it's like, that to me is, it's like, yeah, you have a morning routine. You just don't call it a morning routine because you're not that stoked on it.
Yeah.
It's like the people that are like, this is my morning routine. It's like they've thought about it, they've put effort into it, and then they've actioned it. So it's like, I'm sort of starting to come around to some of the more cliche sort of stuff that is floating around. And now I'm sort of trying to like, because it's like, yeah, this is here and I've managed to pull this off and managed to get whatever amount of people that listen to it and people like this. But it's like, what is there now that I can do that it's like nothing else to do with like the podcast in terms of like, I need to make more videos. I need to do, it's like, no, just be a better person.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing to be a better person? And then it's like, you're right. Shit starts to follow along. And I look at my brother and it's like, he's more of a clear person on the stuff that he does. And it's like, it's obvious. And then you see other people around in our circles, and even Sam, like that you met here. 2 years ago, he was fucking working at 3 o'clock in the morning cleaning a nightclub.
Yeah.
And it's like, he just bought a warehouse the other day for fucking damn near $500,000.
Yeah.
And it's like, he was still had the glove company. The glove company's been going almost 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, he worked on himself. He did he's done all the same shit in the business. He's made the gloves have always been good quality. The artwork's always been fantastic. He's always used the same artist. Nothing's different really about his business.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that's different about him.
Yeah.
And then,
I love that.
So it is cool, like, and to hear you guys talk like that, it strikes a chord even in myself, because you guys walk in the room and I'm like, fucking, this needs to be done, and it's like, people walk in and they think it's great, but in yourself what's left to improve on,
Yeah.
And if you make excuses for it, or if you don't allocate the time, it's like, all the shit that I want to do in this room, that's just my time.
Yeah.
And if you're not organised, so it's like, all right, is your morning routine holding you back? Are you taking too long to get out of the house every day?
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool the way that, you guys have, noticed those things within yourself and then worked on them together.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah, thanks. We appreciate it. Yeah, it was awkward. Like how you were saying it was awkward for us in the beginning, and that's why we didn't do it, because we didn't like the cliche idea of it either. We weren't very spiritual, or we just wanted to play footy and travel and have fun. Like that's it.
Yeah.
Like we were simple like that and make money. So we just wanted just give us the nitty gritty, like what we need to do. And it's only when you start actually looking at I don't know, and then you're like, damn, I'm really messed up. No, but behind it, there's loads of really cool books, like the How to Win Friends and Influence People.
That's amazing. I'm actually about to start rereading that book.
Oh, it's so good. Like those
so
old school principles.
That was fucking written in the 1930s.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Still one of the most amazing. Have you just read it before?
Yeah.
I started reading. I haven't finished it, but I'm going to finish it.
Finish that book.
Yeah,
it's
I know.
fucking awesome, eh?
Yeah, it
it's
is.
So good.
Yeah.
There's so many cool books like that. Like you don't need to go out and turn into some spiritual guru, but there's just little things, and you think, I know all of that.
It's common sense.
Yeah, it's common sense, and just being courteous and understanding people and listening and all those little things, and then you just become slowly a more well-rounded human
of yourself. Yeah.
Well, and it's self-awareness too. There's things that you do well that you don't know why you do them well, and there's things that you do completely shit and you don't know why. And I think that understanding those things, that's really what you should aim for.
Yeah.
Because and I think about that a lot in terms of my idea on judgment has changed a lot as I've gotten a bit older, to where I just try not to judge anyone. Because whatever situation that they were given, whatever cards they were dealt, wherever they grew up, their dad was a dick, their mum was a bitch, whatever.
Yeah.
So many external influences. It's if you lived every single day in that person's shoes, who are you to think that you would be a better person than them?
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's but that comes from a certain way of thinking. And it's that I don't think that I was a bad person before I had that epiphany or that knowledge.
Yeah.
I just didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah, you weren't aware that that's...
Yeah, and it's when you're humble enough to accept that you don't know anything, let alone know everything, then it's you really can actually sort of change. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad person before, doesn't mean that you were whatever before. It just means you just didn't know what you didn't know.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Yeah, no, I love that too. And you know what? Quincy and I talk about it all the time. The reason we work so well together is Quincy has strengths that I don't, and vice versa. And I feel we play to that quite well. We're very honest about ourselves, and that took us time to accept and realize what we did well at and what we didn't. But now that we understand that, and Quincy picks up the slack where I'm not doing well and stuff like that, and I feel it's a really good team. And
and we're aware of it. It's not we're hiding I don't want to say that I can't do this. Like I'm not good at it, and 2, like I don't like doing it.
I don't want to.
Yeah, just you know what I mean, and just being open and honest about it, or like her saying to me like, Quincy, I'm really bad at proofreading, or little things, and just being like able to communicate those things. And like now, sometimes I write emails and then I'm like, check it. Yeah. She'll just read over it one last time, especially if it's an important one, because maybe I'm better at like getting out how we want it to say,
and I'm good at making it look professional.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's humility. Like but being humble isn't a thing that I ever like, especially living in America. I just put no value in being humble. Like I was like, oh fuck, who cares?
Yeah.
Like I'll just be myself. But now, like, I think the martial arts stuff definitely helped with that, because like you get fucked up every day. Like it does, and even if you're trained with someone, like you probably felt it with your boxing training. Like you can beat the shit out of someone, and then 5 seconds later, when the bell goes, you go against a different person that can beat the shit out of you. So it's like you kind of get forced to be humble, because it's like you can't have an ego around anybody, because there's always a bigger fish. But now, like that whole, like I think being humble is like one of the most important things that you can have, because it gives you the ability to say, I suck at proofreading. And then that's not like, if you suck at proofreading and then you send an email to Nike and it's full of spelling mistakes, and your ego stopped you from letting somebody else proofread it, like that holds you back. So I think that's like a great example of what you were saying in business, how like when you are open to like improving yourself, what can sort of follow on from that.
100%. And having that like social intelligence to be like, it's okay to not be 100%. Like no one's perfect, and
that's humility again, though.
It's like okay, well, this is how it is.
Well, we just did 3 hours.
Oh wow, that went so quick.
Everyone says that. It's crazy. Yeah, it's a little time warp, this room, and especially like no phones. No distractions, no notifications. No nothing. It's crazy little time warp.
It was really cool. I loved that.
Yeah, you guys have fun?
Yeah, it was amazing. Thank you so much.
No,
what did you think of it? Did you like it?
Doesn't matter what I think of it.
I didn't even want to have the second coffee, which I would usually do, because I was like a little bit anxious. I was like, this room is like, he's professional. Are we professional enough?
Imposter syndrome. I'm actually a fucking loser. And I've just
That's what I mean. When you brought that up in the beginning, I was like, holy shit, he's reading my mind.
Yeah.